I'd like to call the meeting to order at 6 o'clock. And I would like to report some final action in closed session. The superintendent and the board identified performance goals for the 2022 and 23 school year. According to our policy 2140, we need to disclose in open session. And the one standard is leadership and district culture, organizational management, instructional leadership, and human resources management. And I will ask for approval of the agenda.
I'll move to approve the agenda.
In a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Seeing no objections, so moved. Do we have any public comment on non-agenda items?
Yes, so we received one public comment by email.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and read our disclosures.
Oh, yeah, certainly, I'm sorry.
And then as you're getting the item off of public comment. So we have some in-person folks. So I just want to say that individuals may address the board on agenda and non-agenda items during public comment and or at the time they are under consideration by completing the speaker form provided on the table at the entrance and submitting to Renee. Public comments are limited to 3 minutes per individual. Speakers will be chosen in random order. A timer will be set for 3 minutes. If you do not complete your comment when the timer rings, you may leave a written comment for the board's information. Each person may only speak once per agenda topic and is required to address the board at the podium. A total of 20 minutes public comment per topic will be allowed. In exceptional circumstances, the board may consider adjusting the amount of time allowed for the public. Public comment cannot be acted upon or discussed by the board in accordance with the Brown Act. The board may request staff to respond orally at the meeting or in writing at a future time. And we still do offer translation services, so please contact Renee in advance, 72 hours, by phone or email. And if you are watching by YouTube this evening, you may also address the board during the board meeting by emailing boardmeeting@fbusd.us, and staff will make all attempts to share and record any submissions received prior to or during the meeting. However, depending on timing, late submissions may be provided to the board at the conclusion of the meeting. And we do have one public comment virtually, but if anyone here this evening would like to speak on non-agenda items, this would be the time we'll ask in person to go first. So is there any speakers this evening? Seeing none, I will read our disclosure. The following public comment was received by the district using the public comment email address. For ease of public participation, it will be read into the record by a district employee. This should not be construed as an endorsement of this comment by the district or as the position of the district.
All right, thank you. So this is from Philip Zwerling, and regarding renaming FBHS and FBMS. I want to thank the board for at least broaching a discussion of renaming FBHS and FBMS at the October 20th, 2022 FBUSD meeting. As you know, Braxton Bragg enslaved 105 men, women, and children on his Louisiana plantation, making him one of the richest men in that state. He publicly defended slavery and openly advocated for secession. Then he turned traitor on the Union and became a general in the Confederate States of America. He wasn't very good at that, though, what with his drinking and all, and Jeff Davis had to recall him from the front and tether him to a desk job. It is a historical anomaly that the two schools still bear his name. Bragg never set foot on our coast, and his name endures only due to the homage afforded him by a junior officer hoping to curry favor with his former commander in 1857, when a fort was established here to dispossess indigenous inhabitants. Then they closed the fort after the Civil War and marched out of town. But the tainted name stuck around, and now it is ours and yours. The oddity is the current FBUSD policy for naming schools, buildings, water fountains, etc. prohibits any message, image, or depiction which encourages unlawful discrimination against any person or group or promotes the use of violence. So no one could even name a bathroom from Braxton Bragg today, let alone two schools. What is to be done? The board should create an advisory committee of city residents that might or might not suggest a name change for the two schools. Upon report of the committee, the FBUSD board would then decide whether to rename the schools. You could diddle-daddle, I suppose, wait till every other Confederate place and name in the country was gone before acting. After all, Confederate Corners, California became Springtown, California 5 years ago, and Fort Bragg, North Carolina will become Fort Liberty next year. And then there will be just Fort Bragg, California. But if you value democracy, favor racial justice, and honor history, you might appoint an advisory committee on renaming now, because an open, public, fair, and transparent discussion of this issue might bring the community together rather than ripping it apart. What do you think?
Okay,
And that's signed Phil.
great. Thank you for the public comment. Are there any other that would be?
No, there are no additional
Okay.
comments on
So
non-agenda.
moving on to the agenda item, patriotic exercise. Joe Erickson, our student rep.
All right, thank you. So today I would like to talk about voting. Most of you may know that not last Tuesday, but November 8th was Election Day. And the right to vote has always been fundamental to democracy, so it's important to remember not everyone always had access to voting in America. To begin, the 15th Amendment granted male people of color the right to vote in 1870. Poll taxes and literacy tests still withheld this freedom from many Black Americans until the Voting Rights Act of '65. Women gained voting freedoms next in 1919. Then, the 26th Amendment outlined accessibility to voting for all Americans over the age of 18. The turnout of young voters can sometimes be lackluster, but last Tuesday's turnout was one of the highest for a midterm in the past 30 years. One of the most patriotic things a person can do is exercise their right to vote. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
And we have acknowledgements. If we could have Superintendent Aldridge walk us through.
Certainly. So November is National Native American Heritage Month, National Family Literacy Month, National Child Safety and Protection Month, Good Nutrition Month. Retired Teachers Week was November 6th through the 12th. American Education Week is November 14th through the 18th. National School Psychology Week was November 7th through the 11th. National Family Week was November 20th through the 26th, and Thanksgiving Day is November 24th. We also received some donations, or a donation of $350 was received by Fort Bragg Middle School Parents Club for the purchase of Student Council t-shirts.
Okay. Thank you. So we have, the next item is communications, and I believe all the board received a few letters regarding the request for a name change and inquiry about name change. And I also received, which I will forward to the board, MCOE, which is Mendocino County Office of Education, verified that we do have financial means and with our reserve to for the first and second year out, since we submitted our bargaining unit agreement for the salary increases. So that was a nice letter. They didn't say anything about the third year, but they said we were able to meet our financial obligations for the first and second. So I'll forward that to the board. And did anyone else get any other correspondence or communication? Okay, so we have now the public comment for agenda items. Anyone?
There's no submitted public comment.
And that leads us to our reports. We have student rep Joe Erickson.
Okay, I'll start with my report from Redwood Elementary. So report card conferences were Tuesday through Friday of this week, and the 28th of November is Coffee with the Principal, parentheses decaf, 6:30 through 7 in the cafeteria, and the topic will be supporting reading at home. The 1st of December will be College and Career Day at Redwood, so wear something that shows what job you'd like to have or what college or trade school you want to attend. This is for staff and students. The 3rd of December will be the Parents Club fundraiser at Town Hall. The 6th will be the Parents Club meeting, and the 8th of December will be the Site Council meeting from 3:30 to 4:30 in the library. And on the 16th of December is a school-wide pajama day and the morning opening at Redwood, so families are welcome to join at 8:20 in the morning to sing the school songs. From Dana Gray, by the time the board meeting happens, they will be smack in the middle of Parent Conference Week, which runs Tuesday through Friday, all minimum days. The November Golden Awards Assembly has been moved to December 1st because of the minimum days. Also, a new Golden Award added is the Golden Lunch Tray, which was awarded to a whole grade level for the grade who leaves the cafeteria and outside eating area the cleanest. From FBMS, all that's reported to me is that basketball is up and running and wrestling will be starting soon. And for the high school, fall sports have wrapped up. The soccer teams made it to the playoffs, but they were eliminated in the first round. Cross country is also still in full swing, but there have been a few students moving to the finals. Basketball, cheer, and wrestling have also started, and the first advisory workshops of the year started this week. Students had lots of workshops to choose from, like yoga, gaming, female empowerment, frame decorating, tea time, decorating sunglasses, skincare routines, and many more. Our art department was named in the will of the late artist Daniel Fiddler and received some amazing art supplies. Chef Amy Valla had a great article posted in the Mendo Fever about making and donating pies for the community Thanksgiving dinner. And for the Noyo site, they are in the middle of student exhibitions this week, which are a showcase of the students learning for the first trimester. And just an overall report for all the schools next week, the 21st through 25th, there will be a vacation and no school. Thank you. That's my report.
Very good. Thank you. Well-deserved break.
For sure.
Especially for a senior. You'll be doing other things. So our next item on reports is the Blue Zone Projects, Mendocino County presentation. So if you'd like to go to the podium, that would be great.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity to speak to you this evening. My name is Tina Tyler O'Shea. I'm the Executive Director with the local Blue Zones Project, Mendocino County.
The microphone. If you want to lower the microphone so we can hear, the folks online can hear you as well. Thank you.
Nobody ever tells me they can't hear me. All right. And so I just want to introduce our local team. And going from left to right, we have Lucy Bartholomew. She's our public policy advocate. Her role within our project is to work with community groups and decision makers to advance policy in the areas of the built environment, food, and tobacco. Next, we have Michelle Duarte, our senior event and office specialist, and she's our admin. She supports all of us and everything. We couldn't do it without her.
Can we just say she's a Fort Bragg High School graduate?
Oh, she is a Fort Bragg High
Yes.
School graduate. And
Yes.
I also wanted to note, not pictured, she's off at UCLA. We had the very, very wonderful pleasure of having a Fort Bragg High School intern, Maisie Martin, with us for a few months before she went off to college. And then, there I am, Tina, I introduced myself. Azucena Chavez Huerta is our engagement lead, and she works within our people area focus. So really engaging people to come together, to walk together, to eat together, do purpose workshops and other things that the Blue Zones Project offers. I will let Ryan introduce himself.
Thank you all for this opportunity, and thank you, Tina. My name is Ryan Vaness, and I am the organization lead for our Blue Zones Project. And so I work specifically with all of our schools throughout the county. I work with all of our businesses ranging from grocery stores, restaurants, and work sites, and really just trying to engage with those business owners or with our local districts to really see what we can do to really inspire those healthy choices and to put those into practice as best we can.
Great. And so we only have 10 minutes, so we're going to be very mindful of that. So you're getting a very quick snapshot. And this video here, I think, tells a 20-minute story in 3 minutes. So we thought we would use this in the interest of time. There should be a little button there. There should be. No?
Okay, Stanley. It looks like the link isn't in the.
Oh. Okay. Should we just talk fast? Okay.
Go back to,
You have it in PowerPoint?
It's embedded in PowerPoint.
it's embedded in the PowerPoint.
Right, but you have the Adobe Sheets in the
Yeah.
PDF. Okay.
We'll give it one more minute, and if that doesn't work, we are well prepared to begin
What
talking
is
about
the
this.
secret to longevity?
That's right.
Is it on YouTube?
I apologize, the link was on the bottom of the
But it
slide.
comes up for you on the comment.
She's the PDF. PowerPoint.
Mm. Well, I guess you could start talking about the secret to longevity, and if it does
Okay.
start playing, then
Well.
we'll just rudely interrupt.
So the Blue Zones project was founded by Dan Buettner, a National Geographic fellow. He went around the world studying areas where people live the longest, healthiest lives, and so he wanted to know why. And he came up with these 9 commonalities among every community across the globe, and brought that information back and started the Blue Zones project here in the United States. We're one of 72 communities currently working on a Blue Zones project here in the States to really impact the environment, systems, and policies that help or inhibit the community to live a healthy, long life. To work with people, to really get them engaged. One of the Power Nines is connection, connecting with people. And we know from the last 2.5 years how important human connection is. So, really working. Yeah. And this will say it
What's the secret to longevity?
much better.
In blue zones, parts of the world where people live the longest, people don't try to live longer. It just happens to them. Over the last 10 years, our Blue Zones research team has traveled to 5 confirmed places where people live the longest. We discovered 9 common characteristics that help identify a path for up to 12 extra years of a healthier life. How? Let's start with some facts. We know that only 20% of how long the average individual lives is because of genes. The other 80% is lifestyle and environment. We spend $110 billion a year on diets, exercise programs, and supplements. Some have the right idea, but offer a quick fix, not a long-term solution. If you're overweight, it's probably not your fault. Candy bars, sugary drinks, and salty snacks tempt us where we work, shop, and socialize. More than half our calories come from junk food. No wonder 2/3 of us are overweight. Science shows that self-control can take us only so far in improving our health. Eventually, we have to improve our surroundings. We make hundreds of mindless decisions every day that affect our health. By changing small things like the proximity of food in your kitchen, making the active option the easy option by getting a dog and getting rid of mechanical conveniences, you can start adding years to your life. Blue Zones has gathered all the best practices in the world for creating a healthy environment and produced a list of best practices for people and communities to choose from. For individuals, it starts by taking the Blue Zones Personal Pledge. This free pledge helps make the healthy choice in your life the unavoidable choice. The pledge helps you move naturally all day long, have less stress in your life, make it easier to eat more nutritious food with fewer calories, and connect more with the right people. On the community level, we start by examining all of the things that influence our everyday lives. Since most people spend their time within 10 miles of their homes and work, we focus on their life radius. We have over 150 evidence-based interventions, nudges, and defaults that have worked elsewhere. Then we work with city leaders and organizations to choose the ones that are right for their communities. We optimize building designs for better health. We've identified changes that can help people at schools, grocery stores, restaurants, and workplaces eat less, eat better, move more, and connect socially. We help people find their purpose, their passions, strengths, and help them find a place to put those gifts to work in the community. We know that volunteers weigh less, have lower medical costs, and have higher well-being than people who don't volunteer. Science shows behaviors and attitudes are contagious. So, we help connect groups of people ready to change their health with other like-minded people. Others around them start to do the same. Pretty soon, an entire community can change for the better, and the Blue Zones Project is here to help. Our experts work directly with your community to develop the expertise, motivate the masses, and reverse engineer your physical environment for a perfect storm of influence that leads to a critical mass of change. Blue Zones Project cities have seen obesity and smoking rates drop while seeing their well-being rise. This adds up to not only millions of dollars in savings, but more importantly, a better place for our children to grow up. Take the pledge today. At first, it takes some commitment, but before you know it, it'll be second nature to live longer, better.
Thank you, Renee, for figuring that out. Appreciate it.
What's the secret to longevity?
It doesn't want to stop.
So I'm so glad that they mentioned a couple of the statistics that have kind of they've been able to see some of those positive results. And as Tina had mentioned, we have over 72 specific Blue Zones projects across the US that have really taken place over the last 15 years or so. And I absolutely love this one slide showcasing one of the major statistics that one of our projects was able to witness. So this is actually taking place in Redondo Beach, which is Southern California, and they had their Beach Cities project that took place down there. And this actually was taken over the course of 9 years, this particular study. And so what they noticed, though, this is absolutely incredible, for K through 5, with the students and kids that they had there, they noticed that 64% reduction in obesity. Like, that's just an incredible statistic over the course of 9 years. And one of the ways that they did that is they actually created their own branding behind what wellness could look like for their own district that's down there. And they actually called it the Live Well for Kids or the Live Well for Tots, depending on the age range there. But, you know, and develop that curriculum that they can be able to implement along with their teachers that really helps support those best practices and really helps encourage those kids to not only make that decision for that one time, but be able to implement that, carrying it forward for the rest of their lives. And so it's just absolutely incredible. And the next slide that we also are able to see here is taken place actually from our Naples, Florida project that they have out there. And you know, we really want to emphasize the importance also of workplace well-being. And it's absolutely incredible when you start seeing the associates that you work with, when you start seeing the leaders guiding that work as well, and seeing some of the incredible results that you can be able to see from that. And this is absolutely incredible. Nearly a 3-point jump in overall well-being for the associates that were actively engaged in partnering with that project. They saw a 54% decrease in healthcare expenditures over the 6 years. And over a 3-year period, they had a savings of over $27 million for their health care organization specifically. And obviously it's going to be a massive, you know, organization and compared to that of Fort Bragg Unified for sure. But it shows that, like, that's a huge organization that can make those changes. And we have an incredible opportunity locally to be able to make those positive changes as well.
And so what we're here tonight to ask is for you as a board to support the Blue Zones project at Fort Bragg Unified Schools and as a work site, and to authorize the superintendent and local site teams to work towards the Blue Zones approval. And you as community leaders to take that pledge to help Mendocino County live longer, better. Thank you so much. Any questions? Do we still have time?
Yep. Anyone have any questions?
Great.
Great.
All right.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
That's wonderful.
And We do have a little bit more information, so when you guys are heading on out, we have a couple of bags that has our brochure, kind of goes into a lot more detail on that as well. So please help yourself. There's a book in there and a mug. We expect you guys during the holiday season to be able to enjoy curling up with a blanket and a book. And so it'll keep you guys occupied for sure. So thank you all.
It's very generous. Thank you so much for your time. So up and coming for our wellness departments.
So since that's on the agenda,
It's reports.
right,
Mhm.
so you guys will
We-
talk about that at agenda setting, whether we move that to.
Correct, yes.
I imagine that,
Because I know if it's open sent, I can't.
right, we
say
can't,
anything,
we
but
can't,
since it's here, I can ask
yeah,
that
it's a
question.
Well, it
report.
would be great to talk about it at some point.
Investigate, yeah, have
Yes.
our staff investigate what that means and if it can be brought to the sites, at Science or Health, or how that would work. But I'm sure we have staff that are able to navigate those questions. Because it's
Yes.
very, the statistics are impressive. You don't get 64 very often on the positive end of
No.
things. Usually it's the other, didn't meet it. So the next item on the agenda is our bond consultant report.
So this time of year, when the property tax statements come out, we get a lot of phone calls and questions about how did we get here? And without going too far into the weeds, we thought this was a good opportunity to explain to the board and to the public about how this happens. Jeff Pickett, who works for ISOM Advisors, is also on the line, available for questions. So essentially, the county looks out about a year and a half and determines, based on what they see as the payments coming due and what they anticipate for investment return or interest income, basically, how much they need to collect. And so they look at how much that is divided by the assessed value and come up with a tax rate. And that's measured in a certain percentage per $100,000. And it's generally, we have a cap of $60 per 100,000, or 0.06% is how much we can charge. What ends up being a little confusing for people is that the amount goes up, but the tax bill doesn't break out the different issues that were put out there. So right now, there's a cumulative amount that is obviously more than the $60 per 100,000, but that's because each series has that cap on it. So they're looking at a cumulative amount, and since one was just issued this year, it went up again this year after going up 2 years ago. So just to kind of set the stage for this, in 2 years we will be selling the last series of this election, and so there will be another little increase there. But hopefully, we'll start dropping off some of the earlier ones that were sold in the early 2000s, and we'll start seeing a little bit of a balancing out of those, hopefully. So, Jeff, are you hearing us?
I can. It's a little bit quiet, but I think I heard most, if not all, of what you said, and you hit it spot on. Can everyone see me and hear me, actually?
Hold on a second, we can't hear you.
Okay.
There we go. Try again.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can now. Thank you.
Okay, great. Yeah, I heard what you said, and I think you're spot on. It's a simple calculation. When the county calculates its tax rates, they look at what is due for the upcoming year, divide it by all the taxable property in the district. They come up with a percentage, and they apply that percentage to each property, again, within the district. What is confusing, I mean, exactly, I'm repeating what you said, Wendy, you had it spot on. But what is sometimes confusing is your county aggregates all the outstanding bonds for the district and combines them. So it looks like it's a very high tax rate, but it includes all the bonds. And you have 3 prior bonds outstanding, including the most recent one. The most recent one is capped at $60 per $100,000 of assessed value at that rate. And we are below that based on our calculations.
So does anybody have any questions?
I guess a quick question I had is, the bonds from the 2000s, do bonds always last that long? Or are these ones we're currently selling going to last into the...
They're generally 25 to 30 years.
Amortized.
And that is typical.
Okay.
And so we've got the two projects on the books, and we'll have one more.
So they'll expect
We're
another.
anticipating 2025, we'll
Have the other.
is that right? Yes, 2025, we'll be selling the last of that 2020 election.
In the past, to help the community, we were able to refinance, but we're not in a position for that to reduce the duration.
No,
It's not really, we're not eligible to do that.
these,
We have in
the
the
rates
past.
on these were, I don't know, what do
Pretty
you
low.
think, Jeff? Do you see any circumstance under which these would be refunded anytime soon?
The most recent sale, probably unlikely.
Yeah.
You know, having said that, there's usually a situation where it could happen, but farther down the road, it just makes it a little more difficult because you guys borrowed at such low borrowing costs the past two sales. But having said that, there might be other outstanding bonds that, when the time comes, could be refinanced. Currently, we can't do it, but we continually monitor for that.
And we have refunded most of the ones, if not all, that were eligible to be refunded.
Right,
Correct.
and we were, that happened when I first came on the board, so probably 2016.
And it's happened
So
again since then, and then I think at least once before that.
I'm trying to do the best we can for the community, because we appreciate the support, but that's the only way we can make capital improvements.
Yeah, we're always on the lookout for those opportunities. Last time we did it, it looks like 2019, we refinanced some bonds from the 2008 election.
That's a chunk of time.
Any other questions for Jeff?
No, thank you very much for clarifying.
Yes, thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Jeff.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Have a good evening, everyone.
You too.
So thank you for requesting the report, and we
Yes.
can send people to our evening meeting tonight and say, listen to the explanation, because it doesn't come in
Or they can call me. I mean,
Right.
I don't mind.
spelling that out, but that'll explain that. That explained and clarified, so thank you.
And thanks to the community for paying your property tax bills and supporting the schools.
Yep, very good. So 8.4 is construction report, and we have Joe Aldridge.
Yes, so there was the standard report was in the packet. We're still on budget with our phase 1 project. If you saw in the pictures, there are some windows that have been placed, doors that are in place. So it's starting to look like a building now instead of just a frame. So it's pretty exciting. They've been working on drywall this week. So we'll keep progressing, and hopefully I think we'll be right on time for them to be finished in February or so. And the only issue outstanding is still the power structure, so we're getting close to figuring out whether it's going to make more sense to put money into that or to just wait until the power service is available. I am leaning more toward, I don't know that we need to upend our youngest students from spring break to the end of school, which would really be the time frame that we're looking at. I'm not sure that would be beneficial to them unless it's going to stand in the way of the project timeline in some way. So.
Okay. Anyone have any questions?
I have a question. On page 7 on the bond program summary, we have a total budget to spend of $37,585,000,
Yes.
which is more than we are selling bonds for. So that is how much potentially we would be in the hole with the original budget for the Alted project.
That's a little hard to say because we're still speculating about what the second phase of Redwood's going to cost. So yes, I suppose if we continued on that same line completely, the other thing that happens is we do have some interest income, and we do have, so there will be other things that might become available to help us get through that, all three.
So my question is, we only are going to sell $35 million worth of bonds.
Right.
Here we have a budget of $37,585,000. So that's not the money we have. That's how much we would spend if we had it to spend.
Right.
Right. Okay.
Thank you.
And did we ever find out about, there was a grant that we were perhaps gonna apply for?
We have not
We have not heard.
Though we have heard that other districts who did not get it have heard.
Oh,
So maybe it's encouraging.
gotcha.
Hmm.
So I'm keeping my fingers crossed in that
Yes.
regard. So
Hmm.
Yeah, that would help a lot.
Yeah.
yes.
Right, okay, very good. Thank you for the update. Next item is superintendent report, and we have Avid report as our first. We have our Kelly Farrell.
Thanks, Diana, and I do want to apologize that this didn't get in on time. In case you can't tell, I'm one of the lucky ones that have whatever germs are floating around. So I do want to thank you guys for asking Avid to come here and do a report. I didn't know all our other college prep programs were going to be here too, but just a shout out to them before I start. UV and Trio is also here. My name is Kelly Farrell, for those of you who don't know me. This is my 15th year in the district, and I am actually starting with my 4th group of Avid babies this year. So I'm here to share some about Avid in our district. Again, when I was asked to come, there weren't any specific questions, so if you think of anything, jot them down. I'm happy to answer them. I haven't been in the best mind frame during the week, so hopefully I'm giving you what you needed. The first thing I want to point out, and it's on that first page, Avid's mission is to close the opportunity gap for all students. So for me, as a passion of mine in the last couple of years, I have worked on education equity in my classroom, and Avid welcomes all students. It doesn't matter if you're a first generation, if you're a legal male, female, it doesn't matter. Any person can apply to Avid, and all will be accepted as long as we have room. So that is one big shift that has happened that not everyone is aware of. So I want to make sure everyone is aware. Everyone, every single student in Fort Bragg High School and Fort Bragg Middle School is welcome to join Avid. Our goal is to open as many doors and keep those open for our students so they can process their options. In no way do I think as a sophomore you are ready to make that commitment, and many lovely sophomores think they're ready. So as an Avid student, we don't let them close any doors. As you can also see, the list of Avid elective teachers is on that first page. I'm currently starting my 4th group. And in Fort Bragg, we run the pathway with them. So we'll stay with them all 4 years. Other districts do it a little bit differently. I think this works better because the relationship piece is key. And while I have to relearn college applications every 4 years, if you guys have had multiple seniors, you know it changes every couple of years. So I don't think that is a loss. I do want to share a text I got this week actually from an Avid alumni, a senior from last year. It's quotes, "Guess who just signed up for next semester's classes all on his own." So Avid doesn't end when they walk across that stage. My little hooligans are still texting me now, proud of himself that he didn't need me to help him register. This program is not just for that hour that they are in class. It is a bond that lasts a lifetime. As a teacher, there are many moments I am proud of, but watching those kids go from an unorganized freshman, to seniors off to college and registering for classes on their own is the best thing I could ever ask for as an educator. Okay, so as a board, though, I know you want to talk numbers and money. So Avid is a large expense, and I recognize that. But the subscription is well worth it, and I don't think a lot of people know the subscription that comes with Avid. So on the bottom of that first page gives a list. So as an Avid elective teacher, I can actually log into my Avid and have my curriculum for every single day given to me. That helps us ensure that every student going through the Avid program at Fort Bragg High School has equal access to that information. It also means that if an Avid student leaves Fort Bragg and goes to Willits, they will have that same foundation. I'm not saying we 100% follow it because we know our kids and we adjust it a smidge, but it's there. There's data tools and analysis. There's site teams and district director guidelines. There's district director workshops and trainings at no additional cost. The Avid elective teachers do have additional cost, but I as a district director would only have to pay traveling, or a lot of them are now hybrid. I'm just happen to be in the classroom and aren't able to attend a lot of those meetings. The support that we get from regional leaders is beyond anything that I've ever seen working in schools. There's also a curriculum to train staff, so I did offer one on November 1st for staff. Those types of trainings are pretty much cookie cutter, ready to go. Freshman year focuses a little bit more, so that's the stuff that comes with that. We also get high interest articles. In fact, my students today, while I was home with my sick children, read an article about late start times and debated whether Fort Bragg should have not applied for the waiver. But with that curriculum, we focus our freshmen on that transition from the middle school, bonding, learning the structures in Avid. Sophomore year focuses more on college research. They do this amazing college scrapbook. Junior year focuses on careers, and then senior year is the payoff. Jo can probably tell you how much time she's getting. Avid 11-12 together counts as a G elective, so that's a college prep elective, which helps those kids be competitive in a top-notch school, much more so than, say, being a TA. And yet you're still getting a lot of time to complete your coursework, ask for help. We're very flexible with what we're spending our time doing. There's more workshops and brainstorming sessions that we can attend. All of that stuff comes with the line item cost. So each year, Avid does complete a self-study. So Virginia and I this year attended Summer Institute in San Francisco, and we did our first round of the self-study and set some goals. You will notice on the top of the second page, technically, according to Avid, we are not certified. So why are we not certified? The reason mostly because we have not moved from that Avid elective structure that we've had since 2001 to Avid school-wide, so pushing into more classrooms. And we just have a lot of resistance from staff, and right now we're not, every section is not full, and so I don't know that it's worth having that pushback. We also have great support now with TRIO to reach even more kids. So I think we're getting there, and if we tweak the things that we're doing with Kelly Smith as far as the structures of support in the actual academics, we could probably fudge that a little bit more. But it really means nothing. The kids still get A to G elective credit. We can still get their curriculum. It just, as someone who's an A-type personality, it bugs me. But it really means nothing. So the question then becomes, does Avid work, right? So I know that finances are going to have to come to it, and we're going to have to start cutting programs that we spent with all the COVID money. So I've said it once before, but Avid has been here in Fort Bragg High School since 2001. Okay, this isn't just a new one. But with all my heart, I will say Avid works. You can talk to Avid alumni, you can talk to Avid freshmen, juniors, seniors. They're going to say yes. Some sections are, of course, more successful. And one of the things that I think is you really have to think about the person that you put in that elective teacher. The amount of hours that we as Avid elective teachers put in outside of the classroom, it's pretty insane. And we have to be willing to hurt with kids. We have to be willing to drive to San Francisco when a prom dress doesn't fit, because if we do those kinds of things for them, they will work hard for us. And you can see the Avid seniors from last year on that last page. 95% of them completed the A to G. That's almost 3 times what Fort Bragg High School's completion is. 100% applied to a college. So they're not all 4 years, because I did have one holdout, didn't pass chem. But every single person had an education to leave Fort Bragg High School and go to. 95% completed the FAFSA, and 100% completed the general scholarship. We also had 80% who took at least one AP class. All of those numbers are far above what's happening at Fort Bragg High School. And it proves that Avid works, because the numbers don't lie. I'm a numbers person, right? At the bottom of the page, you can see some events that we have completed this year. We are excited since COVID. We had our first Avid Family Night where we invited families, moms, dads, brothers, sisters to come. We played games. We wrote letters to the children, and it was fun to just have that back. That's one thing that I think as a school-wide, site-wide, district-wide, parent involvement is really hard to achieve, and we had a pretty good turnout for our first year back. April 19th is probably one of the biggest events the kids are excited for. We go to the Oakland Coliseum. There's sports broadcasters and coaches and all these careers in athletics, and the kids still living their dream. Get to talk to them, and then there's a college fair, and then we get to stay and watch the game, and it's all Avid, so the entire lower level will be all Avid students from California, which is really cool, and they heckle and try to get up on the Jumbotron. It's pretty fun. And then in the spring, we'll visit CSU Chico and Butte. The juniors will take their big 3-day trip, so they'll be looking at kind of a tight-knit group, and then various trips and speakers with Trio Talent Search. I really could talk about the details of Avid and how amazing it is and how we need to keep it and expand it, but more importantly, like, I'm here if you have questions, comments, or concerns.
Do we have any questions?
Can you sorry, used to be the Avid district director. Just because, especially because our elementary principal is here, could you give like a 2-second thing about that it really is or can be district-wide, and what, I mean, I was lucky enough to go to an elementary school and see it is the most incredible thing ever. So quickly, what it would look like.
So Kathy is right. Avid, and this is another reason why I really believe in Avid. So when Avid was created, they started, Mary Catherine Swanson in San Diego created this cohort, and it worked for high school kids. And then they started trickling it down. So they're not like, hey, this works, let's just throw everything at it. Now they've perfected it all the way down to kindergarten, and it is, until you see it, it's hard to believe that it actually can work. Like, what in the world would 3rd graders and kindergartners need to know about college? But it's just the little tweaks that they do. You know, they focus on binders and planners and organization and being proud of their work and their work being displayed. And instead of groups being starfish, they're Chico Wildcats. It's little simple things like that to get their mind kind of focused on getting out and moving on. And I know one of the other things that we're hoping to bring back, which I didn't put it in here because I haven't talked to Mrs. Alexander, but pre-COVID, we put on a college and career fair for Dana Gray to come over. So that kind of stuff is also, and especially because we live here in isolation, the more that those kids see it, hear it, feel it, that they can get out. I mean, to get on a college campus, we're talking 2.5 hours, and those are small campuses. So we need to try to expose them, and that's what Avid Elementary does. It's not necessarily that we're shoving this stuff down their throat, but just the little tweaks, the way they do Socratic seminars, like they're literally sitting in a group like this and talking and asking questions, and it's really amazing. And Avid really is more of a plate. It's not just another thing that we add on there. It's just good teaching.
Great.
And
So
we can go, your elementary teachers or principals can go. Napa is a demonstration site. It's not too far. So as an Avid site, we can take them and go see, and you can both also get the feels.
So how many high school students did you have last year in 2022, the whole
We
high
have
school?
about 70. Usually we
Okay.
stay right around 70.
70.
I think we just lost one today to go to Noyo, but we can take all the way up to 30. Freshman year, and now our numbers are a little bit lower because we do have 3 programs now, so they are picking and choosing. So they're a little bit lower, but there is a lot less fluctuating, I have noticed. So usually the freshman class is a little low because nobody wants to get up for 0 period PE. And then it'll swell, and then we'll start to see conflicts in the master schedule. And so that's where we start to see a fluctuation as well.
I have to say, what I did notice or observe when I worked at Fort Bragg High School was the communities that you guys created, and well, you're like little families. And I know, I still see it on Facebook where those kids still reach out to you, and still, you know, they still reach out to you and Mary, and that's really touches on things well beyond academics. So if we went district-wide.
Well, yeah, you're creating something that's the ultimate goal,
Yeah.
is to improve conditions for your kids.
Mhm.
So, thank you very much for the report. Even you're a trooper with not feeling well, so
Yeah.
go home.
Yes.
I'm gonna go make sure my kids are alive.
Yeah,
Thank
oh
you so
gosh.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have Dana Gray highlights. Feels like a competition now.
There's no competition.
No,
Come on.
hands down, huh?
Come on. So as you guys asked for some little highlights about what's happening at Dana Gray, so I just took a few pictures around campus, and we started off with working. I get to go in classes every day, and I have to tell you, the work is so fun. Because they're on the floor, and they're using manipulatives, having great discussions. So you see here a couple different ways. The one on the right is a math lesson where they're talking about structure, and that was a challenge to see how tall they can build their structure before it falls over. All right, there we go. On the top there, you see Miss Gibson's class. Miss Gibson has this wonderful rollout she's done in the 3rd grade about cookie writing. And the idea is either a crumb paragraph, a little cookie paragraph, or a big cookie paragraph, depending on how many of the parameters, I guess you can say, to build a good, strong paragraph. So those are all big cookie people right there, holding up their big cookie paragraphs. And they did celebrate on the next day with big cookies. Yellow cookie. And below there, you see an example of Flockworks. The partnership with the Flockworks and Dana Gray is amazing. And for the past month and a half, they have been leading every single Dana Gray student through weaving their own basket with reeds. And the patience level of the amazing parents, Kelly being one of them, who came for the 3 days for Ms. Koch's class. Every single student walked out of there with their own basket. Some of them left them on campus on their heads. And, you know, if you want to wear it as a hat, it works however you want to use it. So let's see, just another couple examples of kids working in the classroom. Those are 3rd grade classrooms. And then, of course, you have playtime. So these are just some candidates that we took on the playground of them interacting with each other. It's interesting coming back to Dana Gray from when I was teaching there. They don't know how to play handball, so we're working on that. They don't know how to play tetherball. So, and it occurred to me on my first recess that some of the students, first of all, they haven't been to an assembly. I learned that very quickly because I got them really way too riled up. And a lot of them haven't had the structure that the wonderful children coming from Redwood. If I could have every student, when the bell rings, take a knee and get off the bars. Thank you, 3rd graders. Thank you, Redwood. The 4th and 5th graders have no idea what that means. So they've all been learning a lot about the playground rules and the structure that's come around it since last year. I think everyone was just happy to have the kids on campus. So the next couple slides are just them playing. Other way, Renee. There we go. One of them's Crazy Sock Day, one of our dress up days. Those are invented by those are 2 brothers wearing their own made up socks. Down below is Miss Wilbur's class playing, doing PE outside her room. And we are looking very much forward to having a new playground. And we have a lot of kids who are excited, who have drawn pictures and plans about their fantasy playground. And, you know, when Mr. Aldridge was on campus, I had one girl who came over who had gone to her old school to take a picture of a structure she really liked when she went there. So they have a lot of opinions about what should be there. This is our first rainy day recess. We have cornhole in the hall. We have giant Connect 4. And, the one picture with the kids holding up their hands, the third grade had a giant whole third grade musical chairs. That was fun and loud and exciting. They had a really, really great time. And then we have a couple, lots of teachers take their kids out on a stroll around the Dana Gray block, I guess you could say. But then a couple of the teachers, the fourth grade teachers, took their kids on a walking field trip to Otis Johnson, and they'd had a really great science discussions while they were there. And the fifth grade at the beginning of this semester did all get to go to Mendocino Woodlands, and that will be the first time in quite a few years that they've all been, so they had a really great trip. And then this, thank you very much. This is which I'll talk about later when we do our presentation about data. This is our third grade teacher team in their math ninja poses. I'll explain that later. So
Very good.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very inviting.
Come on by and check it out anytime you want.
So the next item on the agenda is district-wide update.
Right.
Superintendent Aldridge. It's drum roll because we don't have a report prior, so this is
Right.
hot off the press.
Some of these things are brand new, so. The presentation will be up there. I'll start.
It'll be there.
So I wanted to first start by just debriefing a little bit about our district-wide professional development day. So we had our PD day was November 1st. We had an amazing offering from our staff. Ryan came, and Blue Zone supported us with a session. It was one of 24 different opportunities, and some of those were repeated, so we actually had 30 different possible opportunities across the 3 sessions for the day. And we got lots of really good feedback, some good feedback about how we can make it more applicable for teachers for next year, and also a lot of praise about it was the best PD ever, those sort of things. So I thought I was very happy with the outcome, given that we didn't start planning it until about 6 weeks beforehand, and it's a major undertaking for that short period of time. So thank you to all the staff who made that happen, and thank you to Renee, she did a lot of work there as well. So. As far as academics and attendance, so we're winding down our parent conference week, so we want to thank all our parents and teachers for making time for these important conversations. I know a lot of teachers have been stay until 7 o'clock each day, and makes for a really long week, but I know parents appreciate having time to meet at the times that work for them. We have completed a third of our academic year, so just thought I'd highlight that. We're already that far in. Illness has been a challenge for our schools the last several weeks. It's had the most impact at Redwood in past weeks. This week, the middle school has the not happy designation of taking the lead there. We had approximately 28% of our students out on Monday, most presumably from illness as it continued into Tuesday, Wednesday. Today was a little better, but it's still pretty abysmal. And speaking to the clinics, it's really the flu that we're looking at right now. Inland, they're really looking at RSV. They said over the holiday, they expect those things to switch. So he said for the next 10 to 15 days, we're probably still in a pretty high time for the illness. So we did send out a letter today just reminding parents of please keep students at home. We're also suspending the policy of needing a doctor's note for students who miss 3 days or more due to illness. The clinics were just overwhelmed with that. They said it was taking away from patient care, and I said, we want patient care. We understand folks are sick right now. So that'll be suspended through the end of December, and then we'll reevaluate. After school program update, we've completed and submitted our renewal application for the assets program at the high school here. So that was a lot of work, so thank you to Carolyn and her staff for pulling that together. It's only every 5-year thing, and she said it's a really good thing. And she was looking at her timeline to see if she would retire before then. It comes due again. We're actively working with MCRPD to see if our partnership can evolve to include the implementation of ELOP. MCRPD will be agendizing this item in January, and so we will have some information to bring forward to them. Hopefully we'll also have some folks who can come speak to the impact of the program as it's had a huge impact on our community, continues to have a huge impact, and I think an expansion will only make that more powerful. We also have support from MCOE and CDE to ensure our programs continue to be viable and vibrant. And I think at that meeting in January, it may even the head of expanded learning programs, Michael Funk from CDE, may actually attend that meeting as well. He's that interested in being a part of this and seeing the success of our programs. So had pretty far-reaching influence. Thank you very much to Beth, who's assisted in that as well. In human resources, we've continued to add substitutes and staff where needed. We've been picking up a couple of subs here and there and just sort of building our capacity there. We are starting to reach out in different ways to ensure our job opportunities are advertised in more places. Talking about getting some flyers out and hopefully getting them to non-traditional places, you know, wherever there's a community message board or whatnot, just getting that kind of thing out. I did meet yesterday with an ad consultant for the movie theater. And so after getting my ideas, he's going to kind of bring back some sketches of some possibilities to meet with me after Thanksgiving to see if we can move forward and get something showing before movies at the theater. So. In the area of community partnerships, we're working with the Mendocino Coast Clinics to expand the use of the John Dietrich Center and ensure our students have access to services and supports. As a part of that, Mendocino County Youth Project is providing a bilingual youth services worker to our district. This person's providing small group support for students during the school day, but there's also a plan to reopen the teen lounge at the JD Center on Wednesday, so our high school students could drop in on the early releases, have some support, have a person there they can chat with if they need that type of support as well. And I will also follow up on the request letter that we had for the letter of support received from the North Coast Pomo tribe, and I'll share my letter with the board before sending it out. Next, we have our board professional development. So I want to thank you all for being a part of the Masters in Governance training with me. I know hearing that information again, much of it, it took a lot of resolve to be in the room on Zoom, but I really appreciate your company in moving forward with that. I got my certificate, so I'm officially completed the training. So I appreciate Trustee Makala and Trustee Babcock working with me to attend the Equity Network training. That was 4 Saturdays that we had that work. We have met to start our planning for the board equity workshop on December 10th. I think we've got a really good program, but when you put 3 educators in a room planning something, it's over planned, I think, at this point. So I would expect that we're probably going to have to come back for a couple more meetings to get that going. I know that I've also spoken with a couple of you directly about the Coast to Coast advocacy trip that is sponsored by CSBA and AXA, where we would go to Washington, D.C. in April to meet with federal legislators. I keep hearing they really want to keep pushing this for some of those pieces. So if there's an interest, it's something that we could discuss. We can have up to 2 board members in addition to the superintendent attend if there is. So. And finally, just wishing everyone a happy and safe Thanksgiving.
Very good.
So just a quick question about the ELOP. With the rec district, is our timeline still okay with everything that's going on?
So it's probably pushing our timeline back. I would anticipate we won't be talking with them until January, so it would be spring at the earliest that we'll get an expanded program going. However, our current ACES and assets programs count towards that expanded learning as well. So we're in this kind of in-between odd place that we're still trying to figure out what that means as far as there is no audit guide for this year. They're not going to audit the funds and the use, so we're kind of still scratching our heads and still a little reticent to fully commit, but at the same time, I think there are some projects that we can move forward with that are a clear use of the funds, such as the playground at Dana Gray. So.
Very good. Thank you so much. So we have our next report is student assessment benchmarks for K-5. We're going to start with Redwood Elementary with Principal Lundy Erickson, which will be K-3.
Good evening.
Or K-2, sorry.
K2.
Yeah, it's getting late. Yeah, I'm like, wait a minute, that's not right.
Okay. You ready, Renee?
You know, the mouse is, I think, it's with us.
Great. So the data reports that Jamie and I are going to be talking about tonight are based on assessments that teachers led students through in September. We met with the amazing and wonderful Kelly Smith toward the middle of October, and teachers all sat down and worked in their grade level teams, and using their focus standards as a guide, chose standards within those to delve a little bit deeper to evaluate what are we doing well, what are some areas of strength, what are some areas for future growth, and what are we going to commit to as a grade level team to move all students forward. So these are their synopses of the work that they did on that day. For kindergarten, they identified that an area of strength in ELA was kids understanding what the setting of the story is, and the high frequency words were pretty darn tricky, which makes sense because at the beginning of the year we're learning our letters and learning how to handle books. So those are pretty straightforward. Their action plan for ELA, and I'm just going to go down to the bottom, they included all this really great content about what their focus standards are, their target focus standards for the trimester. Their action plan is they're really leaning into this new phonics program, and I have to sing my TOSA's praises. Leanne Burkwald did a great job really pitching for this program, and it's definitely supporting our kids as they're mastering these early literacy skills. They are using their PLC time, their professional learning community time, on the early release Wednesdays to talk about what kind of progress they're seeing, what stumbling blocks, and troubleshooting those together. And then with all of our grade levels, as much hands-on learning as we can implement in the classroom so the kids are having fun while they're learning. So I'm really proud of their action plan. As far as math, they looked at this writing numbers from 0 to 20. That's what the standard is. Some of the students, their results on this assessment indicate that they're most likely able to do this. It's a little tricky because the standard is about writing the numbers, and the assessment is done on the Chromebook. So there's some wiggle room there. But I really appreciated their data analysis here on the bottom, where they're emphasizing the print-rich environment, which includes numerals as well as letters and numbers, which is helping support that, because we're doing a lot of choral counting in the kindergarten classroom, that calendar routine that solidifies kids' understanding of time and events coming up, and that cardinality. So those are their data statements, and then their action plan for math. Our kinder team they've revised their pacing guide for math. Our everyday math curriculum is very cyclical. It's got this spiral to it where you do a little geometry and you do some numeracy there. They've taken it apart more so that they can have a longer instructional period where they're focusing on one of those domains at a time. They felt like that was in the best interest of students last year, and they've continued with that this year, and it seems to be working well for students and teachers. So continuing with that pacing guide so that they can really hone in on those domains one at a time. Of course, they're going to continue with some of the spiral. And then incorporating lots of manipulatives and games to reinforce the concepts and increase student engagement. That's at the heart of everything that we do in our classrooms at Redwood, is that student engagement. For first grade, our first grade team identified these 3 standards that they thought highlighted some interesting data. So asking and answering questions about key details is tricky for our students right now. They're still really mastering that grade level content. About 50% of the students demonstrate the understanding of applying grade level phonics and word analysis skills. And I think that they did in the bottom speak to their gratitude for our kindergarten teachers and the work that those teachers are putting in with that. That was foundational skills and the instruction that the kids are getting in kindergarten. And what a nice experience to have kids that had a full year of kindergarten. Changes everything. And then demonstrating the command of conventions of standard English capitalization punctuation. That was something that teachers identified is not assessed within iReady, so they're highlighting that because they know it's one of those important standards that second grade teachers are really counting on kids coming in with, so they're looking at creative ways that they can help students build those skills in first grade and how they can assess it. And I love that they, as their grade level team, they developed a student-friendly rubric to assist students evaluate their own writing. So, do I have a capital at the beginning? Do I have a punctuation mark at the end? And it's, you know, students can check it for themselves. They can have a partner check it. But they're teaching that throughout their grade level and finding that to be effective. So their action plan includes high-quality instruction using our board-adopted curricula. They are really working on the high-frequency words, phonics. Haggerty is the phonemic awareness program that we're using. And I get to see that most days when I'm in classrooms. The kids really enjoy it. They get their choppers out to segment the words so that they're able to identify the chunks of those words, which is going to help them break words apart when they're decoding and helps them put those sounds together when they're encoding. Working on decodable books, so books where they're using high frequency words and they don't have to, they're using words that they can sound out phonetically, as well as leveled texts, writing in journals, and as always, games and centers so that kids are doing hands-on activities. In math in first grade, the teachers identified these 3 standards, looking at counting to 120. Most of our students have showed understanding of this standard. For adding and subtracting within 20, we've got about half of the grade level there. And organizing and representing data at this time of the year showed 0% of students showing understanding in that. And I actually got to do an observation in a first grade classroom the week before last, and I got to see one of the ways that they're really bolstering understanding and mastery of this standard. I got to participate in telling everybody if I would prefer to, it's all about interpreting data. So I got to tell everybody if I would prefer to eat pizza every day for a whole year or hot dogs every day for a whole year. We made a graph of tallies and we talked about which one has more, which one has less. We evaluated how many more. So the kids were really invested and teachers are doing that question of the day. So I thought that was a nice example to bring to you.
So what was your answer?
Yeah.
Definitely pizza. Definitely pizza. Thank you for asking.
Quality pizza.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. The action plan for math is for them to continue looking at the iReady lessons related to the standard and to familiarize students with how the data analysis questions are asked in the iReady diagnostic. They recognize that the way that the iReady diagnostic was assessing student knowledge of data may not have matched up with the way that they were teaching the data, because it is something that they cover as part of the curriculum. But I thought that was a nice indicator of some good responsive teaching going on in the classrooms and adjusting as necessary. Okay, second grade. They identified these 2 standards, so knowing and applying grade level phonics and word analysis skills in decoding. Only 13% of the students tested demonstrated either partial or proficient understanding. And we're really working on a campus-wide emphasis on phonological awareness and phonics instruction. Again, Leanne Brickwall has really come through for us. I get to see kindergarten and first grade students using this new phonics curriculum, and it's going to help our second grade students access the grade level text that they're working with. For the second standard they're working on describing the overall structure of a story, which is pretty complex, including a description of how the beginning introduces the story and the ending concludes the action. So it's a little deeper than just what happened. It's understanding how did you know this. It's pretty comprehensive. So only 4% of the students tested demonstrated partial or proficient understanding of that standard. Their action plan for ELA encompasses not just those standards, but implementing the Hegarty routines, playing the English language arts games, using collaborative time to reflect on the standards and student progress, using their PLC time to share successful strategies, focusing on comprehension and engagement strategy that everybody's using is the AB partner talk. So having a structured talk time between two students where they're taking turns. It's very clear about you get a certain amount of time to help students talk about and solidify their learning. And then for second grade math, 2NBT3 is reading and writing numbers to 1,000 using base 10 numerals. 44% of students tested demonstrated partial or proficient understanding. And NBT1 is understanding that 3 digits of a 3-digit number represent the amount of hundreds, tens, and ones. So in the number 345, the 3 means 300, etc. That only 4% of students tested demonstrated partial or complete understanding of that. And something to keep in mind with all of these numbers for all of these grade levels, the standards are for mastery by the end of the year. So we're going to be looking at progress in these standards over the course of the year. It would be really weird if we had full mastery of all these standards for second grade at the beginning. So what we're really focusing on is progress and monitoring, are the students moving forward? Are we responding appropriately when they do and don't understand the concepts being taught? And the work that we're doing with Kelly Smith of gathering, like we did in the Dana Gray cafeteria, and having those moments where we're all working on the same things at the same time and feeling that power and that unity as a team, I think is really, it's enjoyable and they come up with amazing things as well. So the second grade action plan includes teaching place value concepts, implementing the calendar routines, continuing math games, using that collaborative time to reflect on the standards, and sharing successful strategies. So our planning time is valuable. We're going to continue playing lots of games and providing kids with hands-on activities, utilizing our engagement strategies, and continuing to be grateful for being on campus with our kids, even when they're a little sick.
Thank you for the very complete, comprehensive report. I mean, what I appreciate is, you're adjusting, there's analyzing, you're implementing, you're being realistic, you're engaging. They're all the things that you can do to get back on track. And it takes a lot of continuous effort and, pretty exciting that this is where you're at, and we'll see where you go.
It is.
Yeah,
it is.
exciting.
And our teachers are using that PLC time, and they're documenting the conversations that they're having about the data. So we don't just do data
For us, yeah,
for
it's
you.
really, well, and it's really is for you. So there's a great system going, and it's getting more clear to me as a non-educator exactly the system. So it's pretty exciting to see, because it's getting more clear, not just because I've been on the board for 6 years, but you could tell it from the ground up, it's getting more clear. Yeah.
You're welcome to come and join us
I
for
want to see
one of those days.
the words word hacking, whacking. What would you
It's
call
pretty
that?
great.
Haggerty?
It's pretty great.
It's great to see emphasizing phonics too, that's great.
Do you have any questions?
So I just had a couple, if I may. So
Please.
I know when school first reopened after COVID, Redwood obviously had a lot of difficulty. Kids' behavior, just getting used to being in school
Mhm.
again. Are things better? I know this isn't benchmark specific, but while you're here, I thought I'd ask.
Things are definitely better. We've got, we're used to some of what's going on, and we're experts in working with children. So there's always going to be a few kids for whom the general instruction doesn't quite fit the bill, but we've got an incredible school counselor. We've got teachers working their butts off, and we're making it work. We've got some creative scheduling going on. Generally, it's better.
Good.
It's definitely better.
Good.
I got to meet with the counselor today, and we talked about, a little reflection. I think we had a little honeymoon at the beginning of the year where we all sighed a little breath of relief, and then they got comfortable. But that's what we want. We want them to be comfortable so that we can understand what their behavior is communicating so that we can meet their needs. I've been in several parent conferences this week where we're talking specifically about progress with student behavior, and we're seeing that progress. We're seeing positive change, and having those partnerships with families. It's making a huge difference.
Excellent. I guess my other question is, with this snapshot, a lot of actions and numbers and stuff, but I just want to ask you, how are you feeling good about?
I'm feeling good.
Good, great.
I'm feeling good.
Any major concerns? I know this was September, so it's
This was September,
already
so
2 months ago.
I mean, the data's different now than it was a month and a half ago. But I see everybody making progress. Not everybody's going to make progress at the same rate, and some people's progress is really not on academics yet because they're still learning, because they didn't get to go to preschool. They're learning how to be a good friend and which parts of the school are accessible during the day. But we're all making progress. I'm so proud of how hard our teachers are working and how diligent our students are.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I have a quick question, and I think I know the answer, but teachers, staff are enjoying using the Kelly Smith method, we call it?
I think there's an overwhelmingly positive response to working with Kelly because she makes it accessible. There's things that we're learning with her and practicing that we can put into place the next day, and then teachers get to see the results develop over time. Yeah. I love working with Kelly. She's a smart woman.
Yeah.
Very good. Thank you so much for the report.
Yeah, thank you.
And we have Dana Gray Elementary, presented by Principal Jamie Alexander, and that is 3-5.
Hello again, everybody. Thank you to Lundy for kind of telling the gist of what we all did. It was so fun to see them all in the cafeteria. We had 6 big TVs on the side, one for each grade level, and they were all working through each portion, deciding on what their focus standards were going to be, and they really used their time wisely. It was really fun to watch. We gave them lots of candy. I was the replenisher of said candy.
Healthy candy.
Of course, healthy candy. So let's get started. As I know you guys have all read this through before. We've been here before, so I can definitely say that we all realized when we looked at the data that there was definitely work to do. But to Lundy's point, this was in September. And so some of the grade levels, what they discussed was, well, we haven't even taught this yet. So some of it was upcoming in their pacing guides, but the few areas that they already touched on, they had some really great reflective discussions. So as you can see, only 6 of 97 kids can find the main idea in the informational text. 17 out of 94 can find the main idea in key details. And then they also were talking a lot about the recounting a story and repeating it back. this was really fun to watch them go through. We did things, I mean, we did it at the high school, but I don't think I was as present as I was, probably because there were 7 departments instead of 3. So it was really great to sit down and listen to their discussions. They had some really great ideas to put into place. A lot of them were Kelly Smith strategies. With the kids, they did the I Notice and Wonders, which is I'm noticing that I'm not really understanding this. I wonder why that is, and having kids start being reflective about their own learning. Using the comic book summaries, so tapping into the kids who draw better than they write right now. I just was in a meeting with a teacher. She said that one little girl who's really having a difficult time spelling draws a picture of the word she can't spell. So that's where she is right now. And the teacher knew exactly every single word she was trying to go for. So there's a lot of artistic kids who are accessing the learning in different ways. As far as math is concerned, you'll see for the first time that some of these things haven't been taught yet. They're so good at using small groups. When I go through classrooms, those teachers have that down, and seeing, 26 kids all working in little groups, and then, the teacher announcing it's time to switch, and they all just see that the teachers have done such great work in training them on how to move through small groups, especially with third graders. They're a very, very wiggly group. But as you saw in the picture that we saw earlier, the Math Ninjas, the idea behind the Math Ninjas is really spending a lot of time and having the third graders start knowing their basic math facts. Because as we all know, if we don't know our multiplication tables, are good with fast addition and subtraction, and understand the relationship between multiplication and division and addition and subtraction, then all the math afterwards is pretty darn hard. So they focus a lot on multiplication. I went to my first Math Ninja assembly where they told the kids what it was, how often they test. You saw them in their little black belts that they earn at the end of the year, if they get through all the way through their 12 times tables. And it's tough. It's once a week. It's 100 multiplication tables in 7 minutes, from 0 to 12. So I want to meet the person who can do the 12s in 7 minutes, because that is very impressive. So they have a whole bunch of different ways that they're addressing multiplication, and they list them in here. Math games, arrays, math art projects. They're trying to make sure they understand the relationship between multiplication and division, which will come later. So right now they're laying the groundwork with multiplication and repeated addition. Lots of really great art in the halls of arrays, and it's wonderful. And then also having them start learning how to draw and illustrate word problems, because word problems are the tough ones where they have to look into the meaning of the question, not just look at the numbers. Their plan for math, if you notice, they chose some of the higher standards there as far as the multiplication division relationship, and essentially what they're going to be doing is moving ahead with small groups and small group discussion, along with kind of manipulative activities to address the multiplication and division relationship when they get to that point. The small group time, flashcards, and then reteaching. And then Miss Gibson's being so patient with me, because Mr. Kale promised her that over the summer we would have multiplication hopscotch painted on the blacktop. That hasn't happened yet. So she's mentioning it all over the place in here, and I have dedicated to making sure that happens. And what that looks like is 12 hopscotch sets, so you can practice your multiplication as you hopscotch. So that sounds like fun to me. I just have to. I'm going to get it done, Ms. Gibson. On to 4th grade. As far as ELA, these students have had a whole year at Dana Gray. They didn't have quite the adjustment and the transition time as the 3rd graders have done. So that was one of the things that the 4th grade talked about, was that the 3rd graders, brand new to Dana Gray, had a little bit more of an adjustment time than the 4th graders. And so that they knew that although these percentages aren't as high as they would have liked to know where they're starting from, the most impressive thing was the context question, because that's really, as you read, even if you don't know all of the words, being able to look into the context of the story can definitely help you discern meaning. They had their wonderment is just that they were thinking that maybe these students had said so much success to the standards because of the they have been learning them grade to grade to grade. So that's one of the nice parts about doing the planning with Redwood, is that even the second and third grade teachers can talk and start doing some vertical planning about what they're going to promise each other to prepare the kids, and then we can make those promises then onto the middle school. Their action plan included direct instruction, lesson plan development as a team. I agree with Lundy. These teachers use every single minute of that 2 hours on a Wednesday. Their minutes are full of rich discussions. They share out, also make time for also their hearts, which is how are you doing and how are we all feeling, which is nice because they're working pretty hard. So using that PLC time really well. They use the race strategy as well as some more Kelly Smith action, which is the under and on surface questioning. The TOSAs right now are working really hard to teach some sample lessons along with the teachers to really practice that on the surface and under the surface questioning. Making really beautiful trees with little sticky notes. It's really great. As far as fourth grade math, they determined that 16% of the students were likely to understand determining if a whole number is a multiple, and if they understand how to subtract and add, and fractions, which is the big hill to climb. Makes me sweat thinking about teaching fractions when I was a fifth grade teacher. And really, I think what they realize is the power of all of those manipulatives in the math program, because you don't really understand a fraction until you can cut apart an orange and see that you just turned one thing into 2, and then into 4, and then into 8, and then you can actually eat the orange at the end if you want to. But having those hands-on activities to really understand number, because coming from the high school, I think the biggest worry I have is when we have students who don't have a sense of number, because in order to pass algebra, you're going to need to understand number, and number sense is a big, big, important thing. So having them spend extra time on the manipulation of numbers is really important. Their action plan is really, they made a really big commitment to having the same cool rubrics, self-assessments, as well as doing their own exit tickets and more informal assessments so they can kind of guide their teaching on the daily. And then using their math journals or math notebooks, and then having a lot of, at the beginning of every day, having like a little mental math practice, which is fun to watch because they have them go like this. So that's really great. Let's see. Onto fifth grade. Fifth grade, they're so fun because they think they're so grown up, and they're 10, and they don't know it. They're working really hard. As you see, they're really, really focused. They really felt like the important part was to be able to quote accurately from a text, and then about what the text is saying explicitly when drawing inferences. So inferences is the thinking part, and the thinking part is the toughest part. Then that's really plays back to the Kelly Smith on and under the surface about not just what the story is about, but what's actually happening in the story and why things are happening. So that's why fifth grade kind of narrowed it down to that one standard. And I like in their action plan that they're trying really hard to connect lessons to their students' experience, their world knowledge, and to their culture. And they're really setting the stage for making mistakes. I really appreciate that. And modeling it, honestly, and calling attention to when they make mistakes. I think one of the, Scott, you were asking Lindy about the things that are, how it feels on campus. And I think the biggest thing that we feel at Dana Gray is the amount of kids who are so hard on themselves. Because they sit next to people who maybe Beth has it figured out, I don't. Why don't I have it figured out? I don't even know what's going on. And so we have not a lot, but we have some kids who really struggle with negative self-talk. And so having teachers model how to make mistakes and recover and learn. When, I've said to my kids, I'm so happy you made a mistake. You're going to learn so much. Did they appreciate that in the moment? Probably not. But having them practice that is really important. And 5th grade teachers are doing a wonderful job with reminding the kids that we all have things we struggle with and we're going to make it through.
What's UDL? Sorry.
Universal Design for Learning. It's a strategy of just making learning accessible to all. For the 5th grade math group, they're struggling with and addressing really succinctly multi-digit whole number multiplication, double-digit multiplication, and learning. There's all different ways to get to the same answer. And it's okay if my way doesn't work the same as yours. I had a mom express the other day that she doesn't understand this new math. And it's because it doesn't look like our math. They're not stacked up with little carry marks necessarily. Some kids that works really well for, but there's different ways to get to the same problem. And that speaks again to what the 5th grade teachers are trying to have the kids understand, that we're all our brains work in different ways. We just need to try really hard to understand the thinking behind the math. I really love that they're doing math talks, and math talks are just little conversations about number. We have one of our teacher teams did a PD at our November 1st PD about number talks. And along with the race I mentioned earlier as a school-wide ELA strategy, one of the things that they're talking about on intermittently on Wednesdays is having number talks be something that we try hard to work in on the daily. So we talk about number all the time and how it is appears in our regular lives. So they're doing math talks, and they're prompting them to really find different ways to solve the same problem, and just having fun. They're having fun with the kids, and that's been the theme this year, is just having fun and remembering that we all kind of teaching for the same reason. We really love kids and we want to interact with them and have a good time and learn and teach. Do you guys have any questions for me?
I have a question about, I have 2 questions, but one is there any grade level between both the schools that you're seeing was most impacted by the pandemic, or is it, they're all, well, kindergarten wasn't impacted, but maybe a little.
This is my first year on this.
Right.
So that's a good question. I don't know. Wendy, do you have any
I would
ideas?
say either our current 2nd grade or the 3rd grade, because they missed a lot of the foundational time.
Yeah, I agree.
Learning how to get along.
I agree. And the 1st grader, or this year's 3rd graders only got half of 1st grade, and that's a whammy year.
Right.
There's so many foundational skills you learn in 1st grade. So I think a lot of what teachers are realizing is they're going way back and building on basic skills,
Right.
so that they can start teaching directly to the 3rd grade curriculum without having it take a really long time.
Struggle is real. Here's my other question. Do you need help painting your hopscotches?
Yes. That would be great. Thank you very much. I'll have to figure out what that even means.
Right.
But I'll get back to you on that.
Any other questions? And thank you for
Thank you for your time.
comprehensive report. So I did read a kind of an interesting analogy, and it was more about state testing, but testing is testing. In that moment, it's what people know. They had an analogy with blood pressure, so that you don't throw the machine down like the test, and that you just don't get mad at the doctor and you don't get mad at yourself, you just get back on track. And so it's the same idea, that we can't place blame of why we're where we're at, but that definitely the Dana Gray group kids, you know, on the state testing, what they were saying was that they had no experience at all. I mean, they were going in, I mean, normally they don't have much experience with the state test, but there's just, I think every kid has been affected, even if you didn't start school, because the social, the running around, free play is so powerful for your brain. So I just think you guys are amazing that you still are smiling and and adjusting, and your strategies are really amazing that you're having them verbalize and letting them know, you know, front loading that it's okay to make mistakes. And I think that's just, I'm happy. I wish I had more kids that you could teach. So
kudos to the staff. I was just reading that educators were more highly impacted by the pandemic than even medical staff. That it was harder on you guys than anybody, really. So it's amazing that you're doing all these wonderful things and kids are happy to be in school again. So thank you.
any other questions or comments?
No, I just have to comment that it's so great to not hear about the pandemic. I mean, we ask about it because from the outside, but I mean, your reports are just about kids being in school and learning and everybody essentially loving their job. And I mean, anyway, it's just great to focus on the positive and what's happening in schools and with our young people. So thank you.
And we look forward to the future reports. See progress. There always is progress. Even if the test doesn't show it, we know it's happening. So the next item on the agenda is a report from CSEA.
Martha Lopez was not able to attend the meeting, so she does not have a report to submit. I think she plans to send a letter on behalf of CSEA to the board.
Great, thank you. I know there were teacher conferences tonight, so I think that was a priority. Yes, thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that. And our next item is FBDTA, and I believe we have a representative.
It's interesting to introduce myself to a group of people that all know me back here. Such a scenario.
But
Sixth grade science teacher at Fort Bragg Middle School, and also the vice president of Fort Bragg District Teachers Association, who I'm here to speak on behalf of. The entire Teachers Association. Just a nice formal thank you to all of you for the wonderful professional development we had on the 1st of November, which I was going to go into a little bit of detail, but Superintendent Aldridge did. I'll try to pick some highlights out that he didn't mention on the 1st, which, first of all, what a wonderful day to put on the calendar for us to have as a PD day. It's really good timing in terms of we've gotten the beginning of school started and we've got our foundations down and we've gotten to know our kids, and now it's time for a refresh and a reboot for Professional Development Day. So it's really well timed. We appreciate that as well. And it's very unique that we can all dig in together as a whole district, which is really wonderful to be able to be together. And then this year we had this added benefit of teachers teaching teachers, which was an incredible opportunity that I feel like that you gifted us. We're very, very grateful. Teachers were just a buzz, like so excited, you know, so nervous to take that opportunity to present, but then so excited to talk about what classes they were going to take. Honestly, I don't know that I've seen a PD with that much excitement, and then it continued throughout that day. We really loved the keynote speaker. I think you got to see he was fantastic. I mean, you know, you're on the edge of your seat listening to him because he's very engaging, and also just laughing at his truths that he shared. And, you know, the questioning what's your why? That's a fantastic question. And then also to meet your colleagues who, like you just said, have been through a pandemic, to say, you know, what's good, you know, to flip it a little bit and focus on that. So that was a great start to the day. And then to be able to, I was so thrilled with my sessions that I got to go to, and to be able to see my colleagues in that light. And now it's been really wonderful because it's very empowering to teach each other, because now we know where the resources are. And I've seen one of my colleagues did the number talks at our school, and now I see the number talks are happening in the math classes, and I see that they're working with each other because they were part of that. I know that I've gotten emails about my presentation, and I've been able to follow through with them, and now we have this network of resources, and we're sharing things and coaching each other, and that is paying forward and it's going to continue.
No, I thank you for sharing that, because I'm not an educator and I could have signed up for a lot of classes. What would have done for me? But you all are lifetime learners, so it kind of got your juices going. And I thought the keynote speaker was really funny and just to point. So I'm glad that it wasn't just me thinking it was great, that it was the staff enjoyed it as well. So
Really
thank you.
wonderful PD,
Yeah.
extremely beneficial. So
Thank you to Superintendent Aldridge for putting that together.
And the staff. Yeah, because it wasn't, like you said, it was a 6-week out. We've got to fill this day and make it really meaningful, and so that we can get, it's people are saying I could be grading than doing some PD I'm not really into. So it's nice to know you can't make everyone happy, but I think a lot of people, definitely felt the excitement to have. I've never witnessed a whole district PD in quite some time, and so that felt really nice. Because like you said, you're building, instead of being islands, you're creating relationships, and it's proof.
And it's going to continue.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Really
Well, thank you.
wonderful.
Thank
Really
you for your
awesome.
thank you for your time, and tell everyone enjoy the holiday and all the hard work.
Thank you.
So the next item on the agenda, we could pause if anyone would like to, continue with us. And you can always, we have some exciting action items, but you're welcome to use the board public comment if you're not in person. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
So the consent calendar is provided for agenda items that are routine and non-controversial, and items on the consent agenda can be passed in one motion without discussion. So may I have Vice President Makala read our agenda consent items?
Sure. Actually, I'm gonna take this off now. We have item 9.1, warrants. 9.2 with the minutes, September 15th, 2022, September 22nd, 2022, October 5th, 2022, and October 20th, 2002. Item 9.3, personnel action report. Item 9.4, contracts. And item 9.5, AB 361 teleconference review.
Very good. And may I have a motion?
I'll move to approve the agenda consent items.
And a second?
I'll second.
Very good. All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Any objections? Seeing none, so moved. And the next item on the agenda is number 10, oral recommendation regarding superintendent salary and/or fringe benefit. I recommend Superintendent Aldridge receive a salary increase of $9,875 effective July 1, 2022. This recommendation is for a 6.25 increase, which is the equivalent percentage increase recently approved for all certificated and classified employees of FBUSD for the 2022-23 school year. So that moves us right into the action items, which the first is consideration and possible action regarding changes to superintendent's salary and/or fringe benefits. This is a time to either ask a question or have some discussion or a motion.
I'll move to approve the item 11.1, consideration and possible action regarding changes to superintendent salary and/or fringe benefits.
And a second?
I'll second.
Okay. And is there any further discussion or public comment?
There's no public comment.
Okay. Seeing no discussion, roll call, please.
Trustee Babcock?
Yes.
Trustee Mattson?
Yes.
Trustee Schneider?
Yes.
Trustee Makala?
Yes.
And President Haley?
Yes.
And the motion carries.
Okay. The next item on the agenda is school safety plan for the Alt Ed campus. So we're going to bring her back, I think, in October.
Very similar to what you would have seen from other campuses. I don't know of any incidents that we've needed to add anything to the plan at this point. So if there aren't any questions, I would recommend approval at this point. If you would like for me to go into more depth, I would be happy to.
Right. It's the same format as the other 4 sites. And I do know that there are discussions, what was brought up last meeting when these were on the agenda was just to have the safety committee back and having the conversations for student and staff safety. So that is in the works of a priority. So seeing that there's no discussion or questions or public comment, may I have a motion?
I'll move to approve the school safety plan for Alden.
In a second?
I'll second.
And roll call, please.
Trustee Makla?
Yes.
Trustee Schneider?
Yes.
Trustee Babcock?
Yes.
Trustee Mattson?
Yes.
And President Paoli?
Yes.
The motion carries.
Thank you. And the next item is the CSBA board policy and administrative regulation updates, which we did speak in depth in the sense of knowing what the changes were. Most of them were law, and we did eliminate some that didn't apply to our district. So I don't know if
There was one I wanted to highlight, the high school graduation requirements for students with disabilities. It finally allows some more flexibility for students that we can consider those on a case-by-case basis, what's appropriate for the student, and that they can actually leave with an actual diploma as opposed to a certificate of completion.
Wow,
So
that's
that's one I forgot to emphasize last time. I think that's a major policy shift that's really very positive for those students.
that's been a kind of a gripe, I'll say, not nicely stated for a lot of folks. So that's so someone was listening.
Yes, and we can go back retroactively if we choose to do so. So
Really?
I think once this policy is in place, that we'll actually take a look back and see how many students, how
Would
far
have-
back can we go and what
Yeah.
students would that affect?
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, that's a nice way to end a policy
Yeah,
review.
I'll say.
Thank you. That's great. May I have a motion? If there are no discussion or public comment?
I'll move to approve the CSBA board policy and administrative regulation updates as presented
I'll
on
second.
11.3.
Very
sorry,
good.
I'll
And a
second.
second by
So moved.
Vice President Makala, and roll call, please.
Trustee Makla?
Yes.
Trustee Mattson?
Yes.
President Paoli?
Yes.
Trustee Schneider?
Yes.
And Trustee Babcock? The motion carries.
And the next item, we have resolution to establish Fund 75 for the Stagner Scholarship Fund.
So this is on here, this is a scholarship that was opened in 1981, Mabel Stagner, from Mabel Stagner, and it has been under the direction of the Wells Fargo Trust Management Division. It's been challenging dealing with the Wells Fargo Trust Management Division, and the assets in the account have reached a stage where they felt that the intention was not able to be met, because when this was formed, the amount of income generated by the trust could pay for a year of college, which is not the case anymore. So we felt that a reasonable alternative would be for them to dissolve the trust there and transfer the assets to the district, which means we are required to maintain it as a separate fund, much as a couple of other bequests that we have. And they felt that comfortable enough with our ability to do that, that they have gone through the process of terminating the trust, and we are expecting a check any moment, I hope, for that, because we have students who are waiting. So in order to do that, we had to request to open a new fund, and the board has to approve that opening of the new fund.
So the only question I had thought of is supposedly Wells Fargo was managing that and trying to improve and have the money grow. Is that, what kind of fund is it? Is it just going to end up going away because the fund will deplete, or is it still being
We'll
invested?
follow the we'll follow the guidelines of the trust, the way it was set up to distribute the income. It's just not going to be quite as impactful as it was 40 years ago.
Right.
The amount that it generates. So
Right.
we're going to be faithful to that intention and operate it the same way, just a little more efficiently and quickly. So
Right,
that
'cause you
students aren't
won't
waiting for quite so
Right.
long to
You won't
get
have
their
the middleman,
distributions.
but you're gonna, what I'm saying, will it be in an interest-bearing account more than half a percent?
It'll be invested.
Or
It'll be in the LAIF, it'll be in the county treasury,
Okay,
just like
so
the rest
it-
of our funds. So
okay.
it will generate some revenue.
It'll be better than, yeah, you'll have some generation of income.
Yes.
Yeah, it won't just be in a non-bearing account.
Right, no,
And
no, no,
deplete.
no, no.
Okay, very good. So what's on for us to review is to consider the adoption of the resolution 22-16, which is the establishment of Fund 75. So does anyone else have any further questions? And if there are none and no public comment, may I have a motion?
I'll move to approve, but did you just say what I printed out was 2216, is that what you said?
2216.
Okay, I'm sorry, I heard a different
That's
number.
what's typed, but
Yeah.
Yeah,
hopefully I
that's
said that.
Resolution, I move to approve the resolution 22-16 to establish the fund for the scholarship.
In a second,
I'll second.
and roll call, please.
Trustee Babcock?
Yes.
Trustee Schneider?
Yes.
President Paley?
Yes,
Trustee Makla?
Yes.
And Trustee Mattson?
Yes.
And the motion carries.
thank you. And yeah, that will be much easier for the staff to deal with the scholarship. I know the struggle with Wells Fargo. I'm sure they're very busy, but it made the work harder. And we want to do better for kids. So 11.5 is California Department of Education Agricultural Career Technical Education Incentive Grant Application for Specialized Grant Funding.
So this is just a continuation of our ag incentive grant. It's continued to support our ag programs in the middle and high school. I think that's really just a continuation, and would expect that we'll be approved for the money moving forward to continue to support those programs.
Okay. Anyone have any questions, comments? Thank you for including pictures, I think, or maybe I just envisioned pictures. There weren't any pictures. I can envision the space.
Yes.
Megan has done an amazing job.
I think that the clarity of part A and B really, it's not money coming from the general fund. It's part of the grant along with site discretionary that they're using. So that's
And we're looking at opportunities. We're trying to get an idea of some improvements that are outside of this grant, but that this grant will support the instruction and will improve the space so that they can have better spaces that way. Like electrical, I think needs to really be looked at for that space.
okay.
Those sort of things.
Yep, very good.
That's great.
So if there's no further questions or discussion or public comment, may I have a motion?
I'll move to approve item 11.5, California Department of Ed Agricultural Career Technical Education Incentive Grant Application for Specialized Grant Funding.
In a second.
Second.
And roll call, please.
Trustee Makla?
Yes.
President Paley?
Yes.
Trustee Schneider?
Yes.
Trustee Mattson?
Yes.
And Trustee Babcock?
Yes.
The motion carries.
Very good. And that leads us to information and discussion. Is everyone okay? It's almost 8 o'clock. Do anyone need a break, or we motor through? Okay, very good. So the first is our duties and appointments of board members in 2023. So we wanted to provide this opportunity to take a look at our list, and Renee was nice enough to put out our current appointments or duties on the left side of the cover page, and on the right, we don't have to make any decisions this evening because this is information and discussion, but I just wanted to have people be thinking about, what's out there and what they'd like to, maybe the committee they want to sit on, or we can even talk about, I was thinking wellness committee, because we definitely have a wellness committee in the district, and I just thought about that. I know the name change committee, I don't know if that would be the name of the committee, but there is an interest from Alt Ed for a campus name change. So that's something that we can discuss further. So I'm just opening it up for discussion.
I had two things. One, about the assignments. Scott and I have both had 3 schools. I think you guys have probably done all schools.
We've done all of them.
So it'd be nice to do a new school. You know,
So
for
you've
us.
done, well, you've done 3 of them, right? Right, of course you would have, yeah.
Yeah, so I just wanted to point that out, but,
So you, meaning that you get first dibs of the next
yeah, we have
round?
first dibs, right?
Is that, I'm thinking, well, that means you have 2 left to do.
Yeah, I didn't want to say that, but.
But yeah, so I'm just trying to clarify your statement. That's,
Yes, yes,
yeah,
that's
you get the,
I haven't done the high school or alt ed.
I haven't done the middle school or 10th grade, so.
Well, that makes that easy.
I'll do one of those, except,
and you said Dana, what did you say?
I haven't done middle or Dana grade.
Middle.
I will,
who do you have this year, Kathy?
Middle school.
I figured that probably next year you'd like to be high school.
I mean, I
Not
just was there and
Yeah, you were just there.
And I
Very-
feel like I've
Oh, okay.
hogged them.
I just
so
know
I
what's
will.
coming next year, but.
No, it's here.
Oh, that's right.
I both,
I
both
see.
my kids are at the high school, yeah.
Oh, my goodness. Okay, well, anyway,
But I have to tell you, I went to go to a thing at middle school, and of course, everybody wants to know why I'm there. And but I went on the wrong time, so anyway. But it was fun just to go back.
I was just
So
thinking
I'd be
when-
fine going anywhere.
I thought when Jake was a senior, he's not a senior yet, but, anyway, I'm good with
No,
either one.
He is,
Jake's
he is a
ninth-
senior.
why did I not realize?
Because you missed a year,
Yeah, missed a
so,
year.
for
I
that,
keep
that
thinking
incident
he's
that
the
happened.
same age as,
Yeah.
Alex Iverson.
No.
He's not, oh my gosh, okay. So I'm good with either of those two.
Yeah, I'll
Okay.
go wherever. I'll
Yeah,
be
and
the
I'm
last
happy to
person.
go
Yeah.
anywhere as well, because you're right, I've made it through, the sites.
The middle school, if that's all right.
I think we're doing that next meeting.
Oh,
Yeah.
we're not, so we're not filling out the right side at all.
No, this is discussion, we can,
Just to plant
but,
the seed.
but you just
Planting the
planted it,
seed.
yeah.
Yes.
So it's planted.
So,
Planted.
but we don't have to
But
make
Diane will
final.
make a note that Scott's going to the middle school.
Middle school.
And then I was
Mary
just
Biggs, and then
looking at an old, meeting agenda. I think we we got everything
And
on
we-
here, but,
At one point, we talked about an advocacy committee. I don't know if we want to do that.
I have in the minutes from 21 negotiation committee, you
Yes,
don't
we
mean
have
that one?
too.
No, advocacy, like when you and I wrote the letter,
Oh, right.
yeah,
That was the year, I should probably look back at 20. That was-
legislative advocacy, I think that's what
Right.
I meant to say.
Advocacy,
Yeah.
okay. I'll look back at those minutes to see if I'm missing
Okay.
something.
and I thought we had.
Like, kind of like our PR advocacy, yeah.
I thought we had kind of flushed out to stay away from negotiations.
Yes,
Okay.
that is
Yeah,
true.
I keep-
Especially, it was,
I keep
it
hearing Jerry.
it rang, well, and it rang clear from the CSBA, there was a webinar
Okay.
that
Oh.
made it really clear, the shortfalls of being on the negotiations and that our process of being in the loop, so there's no surprises, that there's open communication is clear, is huge, to maintain so that we don't get the bargaining unit agreement going, oh my God, it shouldn't come to a surprise for us what's in that document. And if it is, then we need to work on some protocols.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
one other thing I wanted to point out was that, 2 people can go, this looks like Kathy and I both go to Mecca all year. Kathy goes in the fall and I go in the spring.
Which I haven't heard.
Yeah.
Haven't heard a thing.
Okay,
Don't even
when
know
I saw
for
this, I was like,
sure.
oh my gosh, what even
Last
happened with
meeting I
that?
went to, it was like, should we continue?
Yeah.
Should we not? Should it be virtual? Should it not?
Well, I think we could put that
And we lost the
rotation.
counselor that was doing the 5th grade senate, so, I mean, I kind of think it all disband.
So it might just be done. But also the Friends of Mendocino College Coast Center,
Mm-hmm.
2 of us can attend that. And you don't have to attend every time, but we
Right.
can attend that. I think I don't know, I thought it was a good meeting today and
Yeah, it
Yeah.
runs about an hour, once every,
yeah,
Is it a quarterly meeting?
about that,
about that, yeah, maybe every other month or something like that.
yeah. And some people don't do anything except they give, feedback and.
Right, because that could really, those 2 really could be rotation. I mean, we could have, I always considered you maybe the first go, and then if you guys couldn't make it, then.
About that, so I thought we started going to Three Rivers so the superintendent wouldn't have to.
That was my intent when I tried to get Becky out of meetings,
Okay.
but it never seemed to happen.
Well, and
So
I think it was good for at least one board member to be there. but if there was a representative from Fort Bragg Unified,
Yeah.
that if there was a conflict, she didn't have to try to make, I mean, look, she was crazy, and, you know, well, we were all crazy during virtual. We could make meetings almost simultaneous with all our screens, and, but we don't want to have that happen. And so that was, so that we kind of were in the loop and had, I mean, that could be a goal. It wasn't really
Their
enforced.
meetings are short, though. I mean,
About an hour.
Yeah.
Well, they're,
I'm
yeah, because
jealous
they go to
sometimes.
closed session.
Well, their
and
board's
it's like-
growing now too.
Yes.
Right,
So the meetings are
seven-
lengthening a little bit, which is good. I
Seven
mean,
member-
It was an
more
hour this
discussion.
month.
Yeah, so
Because
I just,
whenever I've
I
gone,
was
it's always
surprised
been
to
an
see
hour.
Joe there, that's all.
Yeah, this time it
yes.
was a little over an
And-
hour.
And
It's
honestly,
good, you know.
Kim and I had talked, and I told her I'll come to them just to help them with, you know, the questions that come up.
Yeah.
So that it's not, there's no anxiety about it. It's, I don't mind doing it, and I think it's a good way for us to keep a pulse on what's going on.
I think
Right.
they appreciate it. too.
Well, right, and then so that when they do report, there's not something like, you've been doing what for how many
Right.
months, or
Yeah.
you're doing
Yep.
great stuff, how come we didn't know about that? You know, we could learn from that. So I think it's, if you're available, but yeah,
I think most of the time I will be. I mean,
at that hour.
I'm sure there's an occasional time where it won't work out.
Okay. And everything else is pretty straightforward, and I'll look back at the 2020 minutes from that meeting when we were really gung-ho during COVID, virtual. We had all kinds of time to think about the full advocacy part, which included a lot of thoughts.
And I just, you know, being on the audit, I don't think we ever met as the audit committee.
No, it was just more that the staff knew who to call when they needed someone to make a call with the auditor.
Got it.
Yeah, so that,
So just waiting in the wings if necessary.
exactly. That was
Got it.
just part of their audit process.
I think we did way at the beginning.
Maybe it's an auditor committee, an auditor
Remember we did the
call.
And
facility
Joe, you said
walkthrough.
that you have talked to the new police chief about the safety committee and
Yes, we're starting
reinstituting that.
some of those conversations. I attended also a county-wide meeting where basically they said, figure it out in your community. Okay, I was trying to bring a little more unity, but we'll figure it out in our community then.
Right.
So,
We got
that's what we'll do.
enough
So
on
when
the
you get
plate.
to that point, you can let us know.
Yes, yeah, I'll let you know as that starts to firm up.
Okay.
And do you think we can hold off on, actually, when's our board meeting in December?
15, December.
So it is, okay, so our
10th.
equity, I just thought maybe we could,
Right before that, right?
well, if we could kind of talk about where people are gonna fall on some of these other things with the equity and maybe the facilities, all that committee and stuff would kind of go together. I was thinking if we talked about that before the assignment on the 15th, so it looks like it's gonna.
It will happen, or no?
Naturally, it'll happen, yeah, that we
Okay.
can kind of talk about, you know, even, I'm all about getting things done, you guys know that, but as we're growing this list, you know, I'm thinking maybe this facilities, I put down facilities instead of name change, but, you know, facilities kind of goes with maybe the bond.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because Jerry and I were just over here saying that we haven't met as the bond committee since
Ever.
we did the walk, like in the very, very beginning, we did a walkthrough of Redwood, I remember doing that, and then we were sitting at the little tables but I don't think we've officially met. I mean, we went for the tour.
Yeah.
Right.
But I think kind of the bond oversight committee now takes over this, so I think we're kind of off the hook.
Right, I'm not sure what the function of a board bond committee
Well,
would
I
be.
think it was to,
Unless it was to, you know, in preparation for an election or a sale or something, but.
But we hired someone to do that.
The only thing I think we did was when they were doing the feedback, we just went and listened to the feedback that the staff had about the actual development of the facility. That's really all I.
Well, and that's the trouble with committees that I find is that they're put out there, but there's no direction on what the duty is, or that it's, you don't want it to be a waste of people's time, but you also know that they're kind of doing our deep learning, but that's not really a
What's
good
the
example.
why?
Yeah, right, exactly. And then bringing it to us, but you don't want people, they won't want to come on a committee if we have too many and there's not direction ahead of time. So that's where we have to be really mindful on whatever it's going to be, facility committee or equity committee seems like it could be part of that discussion. Yeah, but we need to have those parameters ahead, and people need to, that are coming from the community need to know, well, even board members, what the goal is, and to know that it's, because in my mind, if I was a person on the street, I would want to know that the board has already approved whatever I'm working on. Like, they're putting all this invested in, and it still could come back to the board, and the board could vote, but we can't do it that way. That's not the process. It's committee, public hearing, and then it goes to the board. But people have done a lot of, so that's where you don't want to have too many committees, but you want to make sure that the direction's clear at the beginning. That's why you have minutes, because they would be Brown
And
Act.
we don't want to get into the weeds.
Right, exactly. So that's the hard part.
Well, but this is a way, like if we, to me, I feel like that gets us a little bit where we can be more ears and listening to what's on the ground on these committees, like whether it's the safety or and then that comes back to us.
Right,
But,
wellness.
part of us, we would report to the whole board what's being, so I
And-
think it gives us a
Well,
little
and
more
theoretically, the
front-loading.
two that would be on the committee could have a quasi-agenda setting to know, like, okay, we need a tighter direction, and that can be how the agenda is set. So that's probably the power of having it a Brown Act, and those that are there can see the role as a board member and what needs to be presented. If people in the community may not know what our questions are as board members.
So should we check with Veronica about Mecca?
Yeah.
Is she, okay. Do you want me to do that, Mary?
Sure, or I can't,
Do you talk, I can email her.
either way.
I'll email her. You got it. Your plate sounds like it's full.
Okay, so I think we've got a good list going, and we have some direction. And so the next appointments of board members. So I, according to board policy, can no longer preside as president. So half a December meeting, I'll be passing the baton. And currently we have Vice President Mary Makala, and so historically, I don't have much historic knowledge, but that person would be next in line to be offered to preside as president. And then I would think that would be kind of rotation where everyone here has been Vice President and President, is that right, on this side of the table? So I'm opening up the discussion. Who wants to be next in line?
He's going to be a board member, so he's got some beginning of a four-year term.
Oh, right, he's gonna be a board member, yeah, he's, right.
Yes, that is true, yes. Unless this districting
We
thing.
don't want to have a two-year person.
Yes,
you
that'll
know.
be a board
Oh,
member.
I see what you're saying. So
Maybe
this.
2 years,
This
yes.
cycle actually worked then, because normally
I planned this out years ago.
it never really worked, because it seemed like someone was presiding president and they were up for re-election, which is tricky. It can be tricky.
Yeah.
But, so this is starting the new trend.
There was somebody in MIG that ran and did not prevail.
Oh, really?
So they were taking MIG and they weren't going to be on the board.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that can happen.
Yeah.
That can happen. Okay, so I guess that was a clear willingness to.
Dynamic duo.
And I think I'm pretty sure those are the only two appointments.
Isn't there
There's
parliamentarian?
parliamentarian.
But we abandoned that probably last year was the first, because it was a binder, and I have it. I actually was going to bring it for, it's about a 5-pound binder that I still have, which I'll bring to Renee, although I could probably I think I'll bring it to the next meeting. I'll bring it. And I think the intent was the newest member, that was how they were going to learn their roles and learn the policy. But we never really utilized that person. And so I think it made them. It should be the
essentially, because
or the senior on the
It's a lot
board.
to put on the new
But we seem to all, because we all have equal power, be able to look at the policies and use staff to bounce those ideas off of, how to interpret. So
And we have
I'm
Wendy.
Yeah, so I think that we're safe to not have that as well, because we're all kind of in that, we're all parliamentarians.
I think the board bylaws that we're going to review are going to answer just about any question we would have at a meeting.
The new plan, and I think there was a question from Mary clerk secretary, that's the superintendent, is that correct? So you'll be signing, so it's one and the same, because I think our policies use the term, so it,
Interchangeably, yeah.
and it's like clerk secretary, is that the same person, or is that, are we
Well, it
following the
said
policy?
In the policy that if the president and vice president were not present, then the secretary would run the meeting. So would that be you then? If Diana and I haven't been able to be here tonight, would that be appropriate for the superintendent to be run the meeting? I don't know. Yeah, okay.
I
I didn't know.
I've seen
What-
it done in different ways.
So,
Okay.
would you be the next in line, or would you just have a former, you know, what do you call the, the past presidents?
There you go.
Would they be the next in line, or what's, you
If
could?
you want a board member running the meeting, certainly,
Mhm.
or if you're comfortable with me running the
Right.
meeting as far as the agenda. Generally, if we've got two board members absent, we're probably going to not go in depth in a lot of decisions, and we might table anything that's not
Mhm.
necessary, just to
Or
make sure that we.
super controversial, because you only have
Right.
three vote,
Right.
or, three votes.
Yeah, we would want to make sure to have everyone's input in a situation like that.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, knock on wood, we've never had that
Right.
happened in some time.
Well, we did
I
have
mean,
two,
in some
not
time,
you
not-
two missing,
yeah.
but we did have two board members missing.
Yeah.
But
Right, but not the two officers. Okay, so I think, does everyone, does anyone have any further discussion, and is there any public comment before we move on to 12.2?
I'm sure somebody wants to be president from the public.
There is no public comment.
Okay,
That'd be
so, we have our game plan. 12.2, board regular meeting dates for 2023, and we have Wendy here. And we have,
Yes.
Renee has gone through with staff and all the reports, and I think there still isn't a legal memo, but I think we've covered that. 15 days, the 2-week,
No, the
and after
December
this
thing.
day, the calculation to pick our 2023 organizational meeting,
Mhm.
December 14, because it's kind of tricky, because it's the Thursday before we get out on break, which is probably what we were trying to avoid. And that one year, we had it before legally we were able to. So are there any,
Oh, you mean
Questions?
because of the election dates?
Mhm.
Next year's not a problem because there's no election for you guys.
okay, so
But
that,
I think it didn't matter because there wasn't anybody, the one year we had to move,
That's right.
we didn't have any, it's just if.
But you're, well, yeah, that's true. But
It
you're not
was-
gonna be even seating anybody.
mm-mm.
I know, but I
I
think
don't
the
think
year
It's
that
still-
we had to move,
it's
we didn't have any.
weird
Still
language.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
So is the
anyway, yeah.
14th early enough? That's what I was.
Because
looking
last
at.
year it was within 15 days from second Friday. And I think the way the calendar was, we missed that first Friday. It was November, or even just the way the calendar worked. But I think that still, well, you'll be able to double check.
No, it works. It's yeah, I don't see any issue with that date,
Okay.
so.
And I think everything else is not on a break. And I think in the past it was hard when the posting was on a holiday, but I don't know that we can totally prevent that. When
No,
you
I
have to
I
post
think
the
we've worked
agenda.
out the issues
But
with that.
What was that?
I think the issues with posting have been worked out. I don't
Perfect,
think
yeah,
that's a
so that,
problem.
yeah. So well, it's also, I know, kind of a burden for staff because you want to take the day off.
No, it's
So I think I just want to make sure that
We figured it out.
that was the only other,
And what
hiccup.
about August? August is always a little wonky. I mean, the 10th is teacher duty days. This year, I know we did it the week school started, and that was a little odd because it was a little frantic for everybody. I don't know how you fix that unless you do it the 24th in August, but then that makes it pretty short time between August and September.
I think that, that was about the week that we did it. We did it on the 11th. But that is the struggle. Every year we struggle with that. It's just not a good time of year. I mean, people aren't ready for it before school starts, and they're not ready for it the first week. But,
How do you feel about it, Joe, in terms of what you'd have to report on and
I
where
really
you're at?
think that the 10th is a good time because it gives us a meeting right before school starts in case there's any legislative changes that come about that we have to enact a policy before school starts. And they've been doing that more frequently in recent years. And so that's always sitting in the back of my mind as a fear of, oh gosh, I don't want to have to call a special meeting. It's if we go ahead and have it scheduled at that time.
right, so it's kind of a safety net to have it before.
Yes.
Okay.
And I
Well,
think,
and if we needed a 45-day revise, it would be before that.
Right, it falls in that
Yeah,
timeline
that's
as
true
well.
too.
So.
Yeah.
So the 2 meetings in June, I know those are budget related, but those,
Because we have to have the public hearing on
Right.
one and the adoption on the other.
and we just can't get it in that same week. We've kind of tried,
Yeah.
but it's tricky.
Yeah, we
'cause
can. It would be,
It's just
It'll
difficult.
be a lot on you.
well, it's, let me look at the dates here.
it's just the only meeting I can't attend.
What, both of them?
No, just the 22nd.
So you'll be there for the public
Mhm.
meeting. Yeah, I know we've tried to get it closer. I think we had it maybe it was the Thursday, and then we had the next one on a Tuesday, so it wasn't too far away, because you kind of wanted the Monday or the weekend to crunch numbers if something
Yeah, but
was sideways.
You just never know. I mean, it depends on what the state is doing. I mean, it can happen, and it just, for that, it would be easier if the first one was as late as possible.
Mm.
Okay.
Because having, it's a little crunchy.
And that second one shouldn't have too many surprises, so if
No,
we're down to
it's
3
not.
people, it's,
Yeah.
That's
so,
true.
It's not a, I mean, I don't care either way. But if you were gonna try to do it the same week, I'd probably prefer that they both be that following week.
The last week in June,
No,
No.
No, the 20.
The week of
22nd.
the 22nd.
and then that Monday's a holiday,
Right, so,
so you could do like Tuesday, Thursday, but that'd be kind of,
yeah, that's what always, there's always something that
It-
it's
it
just
is.
such a busy time of year for everybody that
Yeah,
it's really
Monday's a
hard. So, keeping it
Yeah,
on,
Monday's
keeping
the holiday.
Thursdays open is just always easier for everybody.
yeah,
So 15th, 22nd is,
yeah. No, it is a struggle, because I've tried to get it in the 1 week, but it's just, if anyone thinks of any creative solution, but,
well, and then we added that holiday in there now, really messes it
Yeah,
up.
that
We
really
tried
puts a wrinkle in it.
creates.
We tried to back
There's
them
always
together, but,
something.
yeah.
Okay, so I think the dates look pretty good, because we'll be voting on that in December, which is the next meeting. So we have, who would like to start with board reports?
I'll go. So I attended the MIG 4 with Joe, which was all about human resources and negotiations. So that was great. I have some notes and tidbits that I'll share at a future workshop. Got a great tour of the construction with the walls and some of the windows in, and the sheetrock was all laying around. And yeah, Barry, I've never seen him so excited.
Right?
It's great.
That power room, he's really excited.
Yeah. I mean, it's a big space. I mean, it's awesome.
That's why he's excited.
Just attended a couple sports games, and then I did get to watch the keynote for a while on November 1st, and it was great. And he stayed. I got to talk to him the night before for a while, and just really good. Just really glad to have him in town. That was great. So
Oh, that's cool.
Okay.
I attended the last CSBA Equity Network workshop with Kathy and Joe, and that was a really great experience. Love to get Nicole here, but that might be pricey. I went to Dana Gray for Red Ribbon Week for the Classroom Door Challenge judging, which was really fun. Joe did that as well, and that was fun to see all their creative art projects on their doors. That was good. The Board Equity Workshop Planning Session with Kathy and Joe. The CSBA Region 1 membership meeting, best one ever. Mike McGuire was there for the whole hour, which was amazing, or 45 minutes maybe he was there. It was really good. Three Rivers Board meeting, and then today the Friends of Mendocino College Coast Center meeting. So that was good too. and board chat, which is always lovely to talk to whoever's there.
Was anyone there? Okay.
Well, Joe and Diana and Renee were there.
All right.
And me asking questions. I have 4 questions. Leads into 4 more. But that's how you communicate, and then you
That's
know
right.
what's happening, what's
Yes.
going on.
Then
So-
we do have to remember when nobody's there, it means things are good.
Or they're very busy.
Or they're very busy.
Or both.
Yeah, getting ready. So
People will
all,
make
since
time
we're
if they're
going down the
upset.
line, I also attended, I was at work, but I was trying to listening with Mike McGuire, and he definitely is a good guy to have on the education committee. His wife's a teacher, and he does know his stuff with that, and if he doesn't know, he'll find out. And I think my statistic I wrote down was $7.9 billion into education. This is part of the budget, and a lot of, health hubs they're helping with, and what is not that it's a happy thing, but every district is struggling with the inundation of reports, like the CBO. There almost needs to be a position for every fund, and everyone's inundated, especially a small district. They don't have the people, they don't have, maybe it's a half, position that they need. They can't fill something like that, and they don't have the expertise to complete it. So
They made a really strong point, several schools, of grants are great, but they take so much reporting, and you have to constantly, there's all these restrictions, and, some little easier to spend money would be great.
and the other thing that I didn't, I kept thinking teacher housing, well, we can't do that because we don't have any extra space on property, but I didn't realize that there's a caveat, but it's also, I don't want to say a double-edged sword, but it sounds like the state, they could take property and they would do all the footwork. DSCA would be less cumbersome, so the state would take over.
We would
They would
give them the property.
lease to the state. So he talked more about what that looks like for communities, not just if you don't have the like if you want to come to the state and say, we're looking for feasibility study for housing, they talked about the lease with the state and the options, giving the state the property to build, and then they would handle all that red tape, although there wouldn't be as much if they were administering. But then there's another end of that you have to weigh. But that was something that and they talked about developer fees for schools and, bond resources, and how, whatever you have in the bond, you're probably getting about half that in product because there is so much. But he also said that you need that because the schools are going to be lasting years and years and years, and you don't want just anyone building. You want to have it DSA approved because for the longevity. So I thought that it was really thorough in those areas that I didn't think that was an option for us, and it may still not be, but he did a good job of pushing out the information and on the grant programs and everything. So it was very informative. But everyone's struggling with all the same things we are, busing and hiring, and some districts that aren't able to be as competitive as other districts. Everyone's in the same boat. And then even someone suggesting, well, why do we have to negotiate with the bargaining units? Why doesn't the state do that? And they talked about that from the legal standpoint. So it was good conversation. So I won't talk a lot about other things because I talked about so much about with that. But I did do ELAC breakout rooms, virtual. That was my first, or actually my second virtual meeting, and they administered the breakouts, and it was a good family connection. And I like how they're doing the joint meetings. And I also attended the PD and could have signed up for everything. And CSBA had emergency response webinar that most of us either attended live or later. And then Alt Ed, I was able to join for 2 exhibitions, and that was wonderful. So.
Yeah, I did the PD day, I did the keynote speaker, and I did a Kelly Smith breakout called Understanding Yourself and Others. And I was in the quadrant with the 2 other male math teachers that were very rigid. You show up now, you're done in 20 minutes, this is what you get done. As opposed to you get down to the other far end of the spectrum where people, let's talk about it again sometime, and no urgency. or no deadlines. So she's great. I've never seen her work before.
She's amazing.
And then I did MIG 5 with Joe, Community Relations and Advocacy. And I did go to a couple of presentations at Alt Ed as well. It was great. The first presidential was 31 minutes. Took them to get in.
Wow.
Like last year it was like 10. So
That's great.
impressive. And hopefully, Mr. Silva and I are going to make it to Redwood tomorrow afternoon. That's it.
Very good. And Trustee Babcock?
So, I won't I was with Mary and Joe, and I showed up at the wrong time for the middle school, so I'll have to get back over there before the next meeting so I can just go one more time. I just wanted to comment, Joe mentioned the safety meeting, you mentioned the safety meeting. I have to say I was a little disappointed in that. I expected a little, I don't know, I just thought it would be more informative. It was just kind of like you said, push, you know.
The CSBA, the CSBA
CSBA
webinar.
one.
Yeah. Okay, not our safety meeting.
Oh, no, sorry.
Yeah.
I missed,
Yeah.
sorry.
Because at first I was lost. I was like, what?
No.
Yeah.
The CSBA
Yes.
webinar.
Yep.
But what was interesting that I think is that, and you had mentioned this in the email, is that active shooter is not the top thing we should be prepping for, but yet that seems to bubble up as always the worry in our classrooms. So, it's earthquake, and then they talked a lot about fire, which I think is really interesting, again, not on our side of the county, but I mean, to really think about that, what you're gonna do when you don't have a school to open. I mean, that, that made me ponder, like, oh my gosh, what would we do if,
Because we don't have big
Yeah.
buildings here. You know,
Yeah.
when Paradise went down, they went to an old mall, you know, and didn't have to worry about the ADA.
yeah, we
They
just
got-
don't have
we
the
don't have-
space. But anyway, it was nice to hear again that that there are sources, but I definitely, it reminded me that it's important for us and we need to go back to those. I still remember the day that the water went out or something,
Oh,
and
yeah.
going to pick up my son, I'm like, as a board member, I was like, okay, this. I just worried about if the kid got to the right person, because
Yeah.
there was a lot of people going a lot of different directions.
Thank you for the reports. And so we have advanced planning suggestions for future meetings. And we definitely have the board organizational meeting December 15. And we'll have agenda setting with Mary, and it'll be my last agenda setting, and I'll go back to 2 a year.
You won't know what to do with
I
your
won't,
time.
well, I won't know what's going on, no. No, teasing.
So is this also when we can suggest future topics for
Yeah.
meetings?
Yes, along with agenda setting. You can always email staff.
But in 13.2, we can.
13.2, you can briefly discuss something, but we
Not
can't
even
get into
discuss,
the.
I'm just mentioning, I'd
Yeah.
love to have the Blue Zone come before us, signing whatever pledge, and then just learning more about what it means for the district.
Right, and that could
They
be,
mentioned like a project, whatever.
I
So I'd
wrote
love
that
to see
down
that.
for agenda setting, Blue Zone.
And then I'd
to talk
love
about.
for us to actually talk about some sort of naming committee for not just Alt-Ed, but the community as well.
Naming committee.
And the Avid thing was interesting too, like making that district-wide.
Mhm.
So those are my
Okay.
buzzwords for the night.
Moving into a leadership role, man, I'm using that one.
Well, and advanced planning, so you really got to dig into that book. It is really good. The MIG, maybe because it's review, I think the in-person was much more engaging and much, but maybe because we've been
What-
board members.
Which book?
MIG, well, the what is it called?
Oh, the governance.
Governance
yeah,
core.
yeah.
That will be up and coming in January, but it is really good, and it'll show you to make sure you stay within your rails. It says, you know, that why you do things, and it's just to point, and so it it kind of reels you back into your role because it has a section of micromanaging, and you know we have all kind of tangled that, and it also sums it up that you know you don't want to. Don't do the job of those that you've hired to do the job, and like looking at it that way, like trying to keep you from going over in the weeds. So anyway, just up and coming. Really, the book is if you could read the book in piecemeal, it's probably better than MIG. Really, It's nicely done. It
We
really
certainly
is.
talk a lot about it in MIG.
Yeah, but I mean, it is, and some books you read, you think, well, that doesn't really happen. Because how many scenarios do you get at MIG? You're like, well, that's so extreme. Like, that's not helpful. It's, of course I'd know what to do in that situation. I want something, where this book is like, yeah, okay, yeah, that clarifies what I'm supposed to be doing or what I'm not supposed to be doing. There wasn't anything that I felt like, well, that's kind of, it is. And I'm getting no money from the book, but I just got digging in it. So, any other comments? Otherwise, we'll go into, well, there's a bunch of, there's a Thanksgiving break. The district office is closed on, is that Wednesday, Thursday, Friday?
Yes.
And then we have a winter concert for middle school, December 1 and 2.
Just to interrupt, I think that was canceled.
Okay.
I believe I got a phone call from
Okay.
the middle school. It's canceled.
So we will cross that out. And then December 10th is our Saturday board equity, 9 to noon. And venue, is that one at?
So we've currently got it scheduled for my office unless
Okay.
we think that there'll be a public presence and then we can find a bigger space. But
Okay. And then December 15 is our regular board meeting. And Mary's on the agenda setting. And may I have a motion to adjourn
So moved.
at 8:36 in a second?
Second?
Any objection? So adjourned,
Who would
8:36.
object to that?